little country. What is really interesting also for understanding about a little bit about our safety culture, it's how our organigram is built. Here is the border, and you have. I will focus on two directions. Two chief is the chief operation officer who is responsible for all the infrastructure management and the traffic management, and the chief client officer. Why this? Because it's inside that we have the management of the safety. And it's important because you see that Infrabel is really client oriented, but also understand that safety is not only the operation in its own company, but also with the client and all the interface we can have with the clients. A little bit about history now. This wave of understanding and working about human factors and about safety culture starts really in the 90s. In the 90s, you have a very interesting law, very really rich law about the well-being at work, and discovering 7 topics: work safety, psychosocial aspects, ergonomics, hygiene at works, embellishments at the workplace, and also environment of work. And in this topic, you see already that human is includes in the aspect of the interest in human existing, and how human is included in the work and how work happen. And that is for me the first very big step of this wave. It was other waves in the 30, in the 40 of the 20th century, but it's some disappear, forgot with the generation. Typically, for this integration of this law for well-being, there is a very good example. This is a procedure of the 3 green lights, and this is carried out by the health and safety advisor. This person have knowledge in the different 7 topics I show you, and he may allow or stop a procedure for buying some protection equipment, individual or collective. And for example, for the first step is the order. He may determine some requirements for the users. At the reception, he verifies and look at the documentation we receive from the company. And also at the startup, it checked as the requirements are really met, and if the colleagues use it correctly and safely. And then you see that the safety advisor look at the person at work who use it, how I use it, and that's for me the very first aspect of integration of human factors in this wave. Then for Belgium, it was very bad event. It was the accident of Beuzingen in 2010, and it was a earthquake in the sector really, and certainly also because it was also a parliamentary commission. And with some conclusion about our safety culture and needed to enhance our safety culture. And for us, it was, we have a safety culture, we know what's safety, but it was, we need to be more mature in that and having a better management. And the first step, it was integrating psychology into safety management. First step, it was to understand how the things may happen good or may happen well, or how safety is built in the behavior of the different actors. The fourth step, it was the notion of fault disappear from the rules, from the regulation, internal regulation. It was really important. It disappeared from the rules, but stay a little bit in the mind of a certain older person, older way of managing. It's we try to still ongoing to this movement of enhancing this culture. There is also we made different attempts to put in place safety culture plans, but it was really difficult to have something adapted and accepted by Infrabel. And we made different attempts. Then happened the fourth highway package with need to integration the human factors in the SMS and also to enhance the safety culture. That was really the history. Then where we are now in 2019, we start a new plan with the lessons learned from the older plan, and we try to have a sort of ergonomic approach for involving more people to our plan by observing, questioning, understanding together how safety is built, how safety happen, and also what are the problems. And based on this approach, we have a list of 5 expectations. First, it was a question of trust. We need to have a better trust between field and management. Having also a better return of experience. It was not the same everywhere in the country, and the quality was not really the same. There was also need for having a event analysis technique, for a strong event analysis technique, and the same everywhere in the country. Also, looking at the rules for having better rules, better regulations, monitor how the rules are effectively used on the field, making a better design of the rules, and last but not least, the management model. We need to have a really safety management model. Then we start to build a plan based on 9 topics. Leadership for developing a strategy, a proactive strategy, having just culture for making it easier to get feedback, having a human and organizational factor analysis of events for understanding what happened, and a REX maintaining a return of experience process and strong one. You see here that these 4 aspects are really the PDCA, and the PDCA is the center of our plan. We need to have a vision, a common vision, and good understanding about safety. We need to give trust to the person to share information. We need to understand better, and with the understanding, we need to react to adapt the system on a better way. Rules, it's also part of the REX, but as rules is very important for Infrabel. It's an important topic. You have the system. We need to know really what is the safety culture of Infrabel. What happened? What are the sensibilities? What are the understanding? Oh, safety is understood by everybody in the company. We need also to share practical tools to improve the human performance. Also communicate constantly about human and organizational factors by little information like fatigue management, how you as a safety person you take care about your fatigue. How do you make that to be fit at work? And then all about sports. It is all about mastering the fundamental of human and organizational factors in the organization and the stakeholders. You see, I told you the priority is really the PDCA. That's the center of the plan. Vision, having information, analyzing, and adapting. That's really important. And on that, you need to know, and for that we use the safety climate survey made by the ERA, and we are trying now to have good understanding about what it is, what are the results, what are the results, and how we can adapt this plan to these results, and also disseminating the understanding of human and organization factors and integrated it in the PDCA. Here are the different aspects of the plan. I will, you can read that on my presentation if you download it. I will not go through that, all of that, just speaking about different very important aspects. Like for leadership, it's really important to have a safety policy and to have a safety strategy. And for that, safety visions, and for that, we are convinced here in the unit that the workshop made by the ERA about leadership, safety leadership, is very good tools for the board, for example, and all different managers in the company. It's really also important to have notions of stakeholder inside and outside and make it involve in the construction of the safety. And about the understanding of the events, there is two tools also coming from the ERA. First tools where we can make the identification of influence elements may influence the behavior on special events. That is the 5x5 model. It's very, very interesting model. And the other model made by Bartaku from the ERA for in-depth analysis, it is the Safran model. Closing the PDCA is really important, I told you. The safety climate survey, I also told you about it. And here I want to focus a little bit about the developing and maintaining skills for sharing what is the human and organizational factors, or not only what is the human and organizational factors, but what is human at work, what may influence the behavior, your work on the field. Whoever you are you manager or are you really on a safety place? For example, we think to make a sort of orange booklets, full with golden rules. Should be, for example, I was inspired by what happened in nuclear environment, the nuclear sector, where they have such a booklet with 10 little acts you may do before or after you doing a safety action. For example, is the 5 seconds stop. Before you do something, just 5 seconds stop. Where am I? Do I have see all the risk? What I do is it's what is expected for me to do. Is it what I will do? Will the results of what I do will have the expected results, and so on. That's really interesting, I think. And also all about the integration in the risk analysis, change management, in rules, and so on. And now the art of the plan, the X-Pro. I told you the center of our plan is a PDCA. We need to build a strong PDCA, and a strong not in the center of if of the in the capital of Belgium. No, we put it in the region because we need to be close to the action, close to the operation. And there is 5 regions. We divide the country in 5 regions, and there is one expo in each region. And expo mean expert professional. It's a meeting. It's a meeting with different people. And what they are doing there, they exchange about events, safety events. What happened good? What happened wrong? Then select events. And also, after decision, after validation, they made follow up from the decision. And who's around the table? Around the table, we take specialists, traffic management specialists, and infrastructure specialists, which are very close from the work field, having the information of what happened normally and what happened specifically in this event. And but what is important, we take this person for the meeting out the time of the operation. It's the time for the discussion, for the exchange. And this exchange is made with the health and safety experts, with the human and organization factor expert, and with the investigator. And these people may also have rules experts coming with, of infrastructure user or subcontractors. And then they choose an event, and they choose the way they will analyze by the investigator. Or is it just an analyze, normal analyze, completed by a 5x5 analyze? Or is it an in-depth investigation? Because it's rich, it's interesting to know better what has happened, what are the situation we may adapt, make better in the process. And they choose the 2 types of investigation made by the investigator with the help of the human and organizational factor if needed. And that they feed, in fact, the identification of all the contribution of the event. They made the classification and the measurement of the different contributions. They learn about what happened, and they already start to think about the improvement. And that feeds all the knowledge for the change management, for the rules, the rules unit, the health and safety unit, that feed also the risk management, the audits, the control. You see the knowledge is shared at this moment. And I spoke about improvement, but improvement will never happen without the participation of the work fields, about the participation about this different specialists, the infrastructure specialists and the traffic management specialists. And how it's happened? with observation, with interviews, with the health and safety experts, with the uh, uh, the list of the risk, with indicators, with audits, controls, strategy. They choose the improvement, the adaptation of the problematic, and they put it back in the expo. They make then the validation and the follow-up. You see here the PDCA on the regional level. Then the first results of this tool is, well, I need to say to you that due to COVID, the X-Pro has not restarted in all regions. That's a little difficulties we have. But in the region where the X-Pro already working, you see that the intervention and the presence of the human and organization factor expert and methods around the table give more interests and awareness about the human and organizational factors. The integration of the different actors is really important. Make it clearly in the construction of the process of the X-Pro. This integration of the different actors is very, very positive for having better and efficient solution of improvement. And on the last, but also very, very important, information loop is really important. And because, if something go wrong, I tell to my company, and I hope that my company do something with that. And if it's going to Brussels and go back, you may wait some times. But at the regional level, the information loop is shorter, and then developing really more trust in the company. Voila, I thank you all for your attention at my presentation, and I wait your question. Thank you.
예, 발표에 수고해 주신
Thank you very
베르나르
much
페나스
for your
안전문화 전문가님
presentation.
감사합니다. 자, 다음은 리카르도 레일의 제시자오
Next,
선임
we have
컨설턴트님과
two speakers,
크리스틴 왕 매니저님께서
Principal
공동으로
Consultant
발표를
Christine
진행해
Wang
주시겠습니다.
and Senior
발표
Consultant
제목은
Jessie Zhao.
철도산업의
The title of
안전선행
this
KPI
presentation is
적용에
Research
관한
on Safety Leading
연구입니다.
KPI
발표
Application in
부탁드리겠습니다.
Railway Industry. Mr. Wang and Mr. Zhao, the floor is yours, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jessie Zhao. It's my pleasure to present our research with my colleague Christine Wang in the afternoon for the event. We both come from Ricardo Rail. Christine Wang based in Hong Kong office, and I'm based in Beijing, China. I will do a quick introduction for Ricardo. Ricardo is a global multidisciplinary company providing consultancy service and manufacturing service, focusing on high performance products. Ricardo Rail is one of the business parallel with energy, automotive, and defense, etc. In rail business, we are dedicating to provide a safe, high-performance railway for all over the world. Our rail business covers system engineering, design and analysis, asset management, and independent assurance. Ricardo has more than 3,000 staff all over the world and more than 150 staff based in Asia dedicating for railway business. Okay, start my presentation now. As a risk and safety consultant, I always ask my clients, how about the overall safety performance of your network or of your line? Their reply are definitely very, very safe. I usually ask further, where does your confidence come from? Their answer always are, we have 0 fatality and very low injuries in past 5 years or in the last year. But why people give me same evidence and the same answers? Let's use this question to commence today's presentation. My feeling is because this comes from the industry practice. We did some research from the public domains. So let's see the research result. Let's first look at what's the railway regulator and authority looking on the safety performance of the network. The first picture comes from European Railway Agency. This is the safety reporting data required by ERA for their stakeholders. You can see accident, cost, injuries, fatalities, incident frequency. You can see these words. But look at the last 4 items. They're a bit different. Their accident investigation, deployment of some prevention actions in the railway or level crossing, and safety certification. They are not focusing on the accident and incidents. Instead, they are looking at how to prevent accident happen. And on the right, there are some data from ORR UK, ONSA Australia, LTA Singapore in Asia. They are all safety reporting requirements from the regulator and authority. Do you notice some common feature from the data? Yes. Most of them are concerned about the accident, incident, and the near miss. They are all outcome of the safety performance. We highlight them with orange blocks. But some of them, you see the blue blocks. They are focusing on the prevention actions. That's the regulator level. Let's say what's the operator doing. We also get some data from the public domains. Their safety KPI released by the railway operator on their website from their annual report or sustainable report. You see Network Rail UK also focus on accident result, but they emphasize passenger, work staff, contractor, different exposure groups. Dashboard from German, a bit different because the middle 2 items concern about accident result, but the first one and the last one, they mentioned about staff involvement in safety management issues, slightly different. Then HS1 UK, Core Rail from Korea, MTR Hong Kong, China, JR East Japan, BTS from Thailand. These are all safety KPI from their website. You can see most of them are highlighted with orange blocks. That means in the public data, they are more focusing on the accident result instead of the prevention actions. This is our research result. From the picture, you can see that blue boxes are very little. Not too many of them emphasize prevention controls in their safety reporting data. So this will introduce 2 norms, lagging indicator and leading indicator. Lagging indicator are the orange blocks, which are accident result, but the leading indicator are the prevention controls before the accident. let's using the car driving to illustrate these two concepts a bit more. The lagging indicator, like we drive and watch what happened from the rear mirror. We can see what happened before in the past. This is the result. What happens? What's the accident? What's the incident? But the leading indicator, like we drive and watching through the front window towards what happened in the future, it can help us understanding what's in front, what we can do to prevent accident happen. These are the contracts of two norms. And the bottom line are the definition of leading indicators from HSE. Okay, from the research, we found that lots of the KPI, not only from regulator authority, but also from operator, they are focusing on lagging indicator, the accident, but rather than the leading ones, the prevention controls. Also, leading KPI is not a new concept and and I think risk and safety people, we are very familiar with this concept. But why leading KPI is not widely used by these organizations in the public data? Because it's not easy, because it's complicated, or some other reasons? With this question, let's say more. We will use a vivid example to explain what they are and what they are measuring. What's the difference? If you remember Swiss cheese model, this is a widely used model in risk management. You see the Swiss cheese slides, their preventions or their controls or barrier which can prevent hazard turning into incident. However, the holes in the Swiss cheese, they are defects of the controls. When all the holes in a line, it cannot prevent the hazard turning into the incident. The incident will happen. Okay, this is the Swiss cheese model. But how about the indicator? The lagging indicator is measuring the incident result. It can measure the failures or faults following the series of holes. We call it precursor. Also, it can measure incident and accident result if the risk control fails. In contrast, the leading indicator, it measures the number of risk controls and barriers, and it can also measure the strength and the effectiveness of the controls. Actually, it is the size of the holes. Okay, next. With the concept, what is leading into KPI and what is lagging into KPI, we want to know why the leading KPI is not widely used. Is it complicated? Then let's see how to develop a leading KPI. We still use Swiss cheese model. We divide the process into 4 steps. Step 1, what goes wrong? It helps us identify the hazard. Then step 2, with the hazard, what's the cause and outcome? And then step 3, how to prevent the hazard turning into incident. It helps us identify the key control measures. That's the key thing. With the control measures, we can identify leading KPIs like the controls on the whole. That's the steps, or you can say method, developing a leading KPI. Till now, I have introduced what is leading KPI, what's the leading KPI measuring, and how to develop it. Afterward, I will hand over to my colleague Christine. She will share a case study. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse, for introducing the process of establishing the safety KPI. I'll take it from here to share with you a pilot project that we did years before on the application of safety KPIs for a railway operator in Asia. This railway operator has got a network of metro and APM lines. Within 2 years, they will be expanding from 8 lines to 14 lines and doubling their track kilometers. With the expansion of network, the senior management of this railway operator would like to have an assessment tool to better evaluate their proactive safety management activities. The tools has to be scalable to the size of the network and also the railway lines. More importantly, the railway operator want to understand whether the current safety investment is actually on the right areas and also for the right activities, whether these investments are proportionate to the safety performance and the safety improvement. Finally, they would like these assessment tools to interface with their existing safety information management tool, which they call it Safety Index System. The current safety index system is focusing on the lagging safety KPI, incident, injury, lost time, delays, failure, and faults. The new assessment tools is aimed to provide supplementary information to the existing safety index system. To develop and verify the safety leading KPI in this assessment tools, we have applied the following key concepts. The tools will cover a range of operational safety hazardous events, high frequency, low consequence, and also low frequency, high consequence. The tools is also based on the review of risk causation factors, that is all the factors contributing to the hazards, engineering, human, procedural, external interface, etc., and also their consequences. The tools is developed based on the bolt time models, which provide a clear graphical presentation. And finally, the key risk control is the more important specific effective control measures in reducing the risk will be prioritized for the establishment of the leading KPI. The project covers 5 key tasks from preparation, analysis, development of the bolt time models, and also the KPI, to a 3-month pilot application using the safety KPIs, safety leading KPI, and finally having the evaluations on the lessons learned before the rollout in the wider organization. As mentioned before, the tool is actually based on the bolt time model in this pilot application. We have picked up 2 hazardous events, derailment and train fire. We analyze various causes, consequence, and identify the risk control for these. Some of the work are based on the existing hazard register. Some of them are supplemented by the accident investigation and review outcome. The risk control are then linked to various risk control owners, various departments and sections, etc. And for the key risk control, we have established a leading safety KPI to ensure the quality and effectiveness of these risk control. One way to look at it is any threats that could lead to the failure of such risk control, we have put leading safety KPI to ensure these threats will be fully addressed. In these slides, I'd like to walk you through an example of using the rolling stock preventative maintenance as a key risk control to demonstrate how we establish leading KPI. So the 3 questions to answer are: what factors impact on the risk control effectiveness? How to evaluate these factors? And what are the measurable targets? And as you can see, for the preventative maintenance, we will be looking at the completions of the maintenance tasks, whether we have got the right people doing the right tasks, whether they are competent, and also whether the preventative maintenance quality is up to standard, and more importantly, addressing the specific risk. When we are developing the measurable targets, which is on the right-hand side, these could be binary, which could be yes or no, or by ratio, which is about certain percentages or degree, or actually by certain specific quality. For example, the turning angle, for example, specific readings from the measurement tools, etc. And after the 3-month studies, we can verify the safety assessment tools. And results are showed here. The reporting can be done by hazardous event, which is reported on the left-hand side, derailment or train fire. The middle one is the reporting the dashboard by key risk control, which is about the completion of drills, trackings of the derailment door, operations, calibrations of specific tools according to plans, etc. And the final one is actually by risk control owners, which is about different sections or departments, rolling stock maintenance, traffic management, train crew, station facilities management, signaling and control maintenance, and other infrastructure maintenance. And you can actually see the comparison between different lines of this railway operator. And bear in mind, they're really applying the same tools, similar targets, but got a different result. So what is this actually telling us? So now let's look at the key lessons learned from the 3-month study. Let's look at actually what is working and what is not working. So in terms of establishing the KPI, what we find that is we really have to fully understand the risk of the railway. So from the pilot study, we find that there are inadequate understanding of the risk precision model and also the key risk control. And people are having different views about what is actually measurable and what are the most effective quality that they should be measuring, and what is the level of details of this safety KPI should be going into. In terms of tracking the KPI, we find that there is a difficulty in terms of reporting the KPI because they are actually reported in an inconsistent manner. And there are, to a certain degree, a lack of integration of this tracking system to the existing monitoring database. And also, finally, when they have independent checking people to check the achievement of the KPI, these people might have different understanding in terms of the measurements and also the evaluation criteria on the KPI. So what we found out and what we suggest is that for establishing the KPI, we really need a full understanding and review of risk. For tracking the KPI, we need to track and link those to the existing one, or maybe a combination of the leading and lagging indicator to start with. We need to train the staff to ensure that they fully understand why the measurement is important and how to evaluate the achievement of KPI. And finally, more important, is about integrations with the wider SMS. It's all about staff perceptions on KPI. Some of those might be seen as additional reporting and monitoring on them, and therefore sometimes seems to be a bit more passive in terms of providing the information and result. In a way, promotion and educations are critical. The rollout program is therefore suggested to focus on the key safety issues with a few sets of hazardous events to start with, and then to add on them one by one, rather than having it all in one go. Most importantly is about the blue logo at the bottom. Is to better apply the safety leading KPI, we actually need the proper organization culture as the foundation. And also by implementing the safety leading KPI, we can also help promoting the organization culture. Finally, I would like to summarize the 3 critical success factors to the applications of safety leading KPI. And they will be a full understanding of the risk, what are the key safety issues, a better integration with the SMS, ensuring the safety KPIs are actually integrating as part of your normal tracking and measurement system. The plan, do, check, at process has been highlighted by the previous presenter, Mr. Burnett. And also finally, and most importantly, to be supported by the safety culture to promote the use and also the improvement of the perceptions of leading safety KPI. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you very much for your attention.
예, 발표에 수고해 주신 제시자오 선임
I'd like to
컨설턴트님과
thank
크리스틴 웡
Jesse and
매니저님께
Christine
감사합니다.
for their presentation.
다음은 국가철도공단의 박준태
I would like to
부장님께서
invite the
발표를
next
진행해
speaker,
주시겠습니다.
Mr. Park Jun-tae, will make presentation.
발표 제목은
Going to
철도
make
시설 종합
presentation
정보
on case
시스템
study on the
라피스 구축
implementation of
사례입니다.
RAFIS.
준비되시면 발표 부탁드리겠습니다.
When you're ready, please start your presentation.
안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon, ladies and
시설정보처
gentlemen. I
박준태입니다.
am from Korea
우선,
National Railway. My name is
국내외
Park
철도
Jun-tae.
전문가들이
First of
참여하는
all,
행사에 저희 회사에서 구축하고 있는 시스템을
I
소개하는
am
기회를
very
갖게 돼서
pleased
영광으로
and
생각합니다.
honored to make presentation on RAFIS system at this
그러면
international
우선 철도
conference
시설 종합정보 시스템
participated by
구축
worldwide
발표를 드리겠습니다.
experts. Then I will start my presentation.
발표 순서는 시스템
This is the
주요
content.
내용, 기대
I'll
효과
first
순으로
explain about
말씀드리겠습니다.
KNR, RAFIS overview, system configuration, and main benefits
철도
of the
관련 기관에
system.
대해서 알아보겠습니다.
Let's have a look at the
크게 네 개
organizations
분야로 나뉩니다.
related to railway. We have
철도의
four
정책과
organizations.
계획을
Railway
안전관련
policy
법을
and
담당하는
planning and
또
safety-related regulations
철도
are
건설과
covered
시설
by
관리는
MOLIT,
국가철도공단에서
and railway
담당합니다.
facility management is done by KNR. KORAIL and KORAIL is in charge of train operation. KRRI is in charge of railway research and technology development.
철도는 총 4,274km이며
Railways in Korea
전철화가 되어 있습니다.
has the total length of 4,274 kilometers. We have 34 main lines and 55 branch lines.
국가철도공단 개요입니다.
The overview of KNR. In 2003, after the railway sector restructuring, our organization was founded. Korea National Railway was founded to be in charge of railway facility management, and we were founded in 2004. We have annual budget of around 10 billion Korean won, and our main business areas include railway network planning, project management, facility management, and overseas railway projects. As for infrastructure management, we are managing railway stations, structures, tracks, electrical facilities, and depots in a safe and efficient way. Next is our response to climate change. KNR is making efforts to reduce carbon emitted from trains. For example, we are installing electrical vehicle charging stations, and we will increase energy self-reliance rate by 40% by 2025. First of all, before introducing RAFIS system, I would like to have an overview of RAFIS system development. There are repetitive works done by people, and such works are systematically arranged by a system. In that way, we can reduce human errors. This is why our system establishment, RAFIS establishment, is included in promoting safety culture. As presented by the previous speakers, they mentioned the leading KPI, and the same is true for us. Our system is also focusing on preventing accidents in advance. Then let's have a look at our RAFIS system. Purpose of the system is to manage the history information and track records information of facility maintenance and enhance safe operation of the system. We started this RAFIS system development in 2018, and it is expected to be finished very soon. Main content of RAFIS includes management of railway facility information for entire life cycle, preventive maintenance decision-making based on facility information, and location-based facility information system. This is the system configuration. It includes attributes of railway and history management systems. It also has decision-making support system. As for portal system, it has statistics information which is provided to relevant institutions. We also have GIS and DMS-based system which helps us search for information related to GIS management and drawing and document. We also have data center that integrates and safely store various types of data. And our aim for system development, we want to allocate budget based on the facility status information. For this, we have developed the system in a user-centered way in cooperation with CoRail. KNR receives the facility management rights from MOLIT, and CoRail is in charge of maintenance works, and the maintenance history is entered into the RAFIS system by CoRail, and KNR analyzes such data and makes policy proposals to the MOLIT. The system has 6 key performance elements. The first element is railway facility lifecycle management. Secondly, preventive maintenance system. Thirdly, enhancing user convenience. Fourthly, facility status and statistics for policy decision-making and scientific maintenance. Fifth, standardized facility classification code, and lastly, GIS-based railway facility management system. Through these key success factors, we will advance the railway facility management system so that we can achieve safer and more efficient railways. This is the details about the success factors. The first factor is railway facility life cycle management. Across the life cycle of facilities, we need to secure an integrated management of facility information so that we can search for the facility-related information easily. And we will also analyze accumulated information to present optimum timing for maintenance of the facilities. This slide shows how we enter facility information. We have a list of facility names and attributes. The relevant drawings and technical documents are also registered to RAFIS system. And the entered information will be checked by the relevant person in charge before being finally registered to the system. So the facility information is entered into the system, and maintenance workers work on the maintenance on site, and they enter this kind of information. Before they start their maintenance work, they can confirm the facility information in the system, search for facility information, and establish a work plan and receives approval. After they finish their work on site, the result is entered to this system. And information about the status of facility is analyzed in this way so that we can propose optimal timing of maintenance so that we can secure stability in railway facilities. This is the screen where we analyzed and predicted the optimal improvement dates for the facilities. It shows after certain point of time or period, you need to maintain the system. It shows you the optimal maintenance date. And in order to achieve preventive maintenance system, we propose a rational maintenance interval. The screen here
시점별 선로 검측 결과를 기반으로 최적 유지 보수 시기를
shows that
예측하는
we can
예제입니다.
predict track
하단의
irregularities
검은
using
점은
track
선로
condition
검측
analysis
데이터이며
and
이를 분석하여
estimate
선형 회계
optimal
분석
track
모형을 수립하고요.
maintenance
향후
intervals.
인계값을 초과하는 시점을 예측하여
We
그
can
전에 유지
predict the
보수를
timing
시행함으로써
when the system may
장애 발생을
exceed the
예방합니다.
critical value which requires maintenance.
다음은 시설물에 대한 적정 점검 주기를
Next is
제시하는 사례입니다.
the screen where we can
시설물
see
구상 정보,
the system
유지 보수
proposes
비용,
optimal
점검 비용 등을
maintenance
분석하여
intervals
최적 점검
by
주기를
analyzing the
예측합니다.
facility
아래
failures and
사례는
cost of
가스 절연 대표
maintenance.
장치를 분석한 사례로
This is a case
적정
example
점검
of
주기는
gas
1200시간,
insulated switch
일수로
gear.
45일을
It shows that
점검 주기로 제시하고 있습니다.
45 days are the optimal
세
maintenance
번째,
cycle.
사용자 이용 편의성입니다.
Thirdly,
웹 기반의 직관적인
user
사용자 환경을
convenience
제공하고
improvement.
외부 시스템과
We
연결을
will
통해
provide
자료
intuitive
인수
and
능력을
easy to
최소화합니다.
access
향후
user
모바일
interface.
시스템을 도입하여
In the future, a
현장에서
mobile
검증
system will
정보
be
조회와 점검
adopted so
결과를
that
입력하도록
on
지원할 수
site
있습니다.
the workers can search for information and enter the
다음
result
화면은
of
여러
the
단계로
maintenance
나누어져 처리하고
on their
있는
mobile
점검
device.
계획 및 점검 결과 입력 화면을
Next
하나의 화면에서
is
처리할 수 있도록 구성한
the
사례입니다.
next slide
이를
shows
통해서
that you can
사용자는 보다 빠르고
input
편리하게 자료
data
처리할 수 있습니다.
and process the
편의성
data in
개선
multiple
등으로
steps
단축된
on one
시간은
screen.
철도
You can also save
고수라든지
time
안정성
here.
형성에 활용할 수 있는
So you can
확보할
you
수가
can
있습니다.
buy additional time for ensuring accurate and safe operation of maintenance.
넷째로 정책 의사 결정과 과학적 유지 보수를
Fourthly,
지원하는 현황 통계 제공입니다.
statistics to
축적된
support
이력
policy
정보를
decision
분석하여
making.
신속하고
We
신뢰성 있는 통계
analyze the
정보를 제공합니다.
accumulated information
또한
and
외부
provide
평가를 통해
reliable
철도 유관기관에
statistical
각종 현황
data.
통계를 제공합니다.
And here in the system, we provide various statistics about the status of
철도 시설 현황 및
facilities.
통계 정보를 제공하는 사례입니다.
Next is the screen that
시설물 및 유지
shows
보수 현황,
the
시설물
statistics
상태
and
분석 결과를
status
보여주고
of
있으며
the current
GIS와
facilities.
연계하여
It
보다
shows
시각적으로
maintenance
제시하고 있습니다.
facilities, maintenance statistics,
다음 화면은
and as well as
인터넷
GIS
포털을 통해
information.
국토교통부, 철도기술
Also
연구원과
through internet
철도기관기관의
portal, we can
분야별 예산
provide
집행 실적, 시설물
budget
상태 분석,
execution
보상 현황
result
등을 제공하는
and
사례입니다.
facility failure status to various
다섯 번째,
organizations related to
철도시설
railway.
규격부터 표준화입니다.
Next one is
국가철도
railway
시설
facility
표준화하여
classification
기자 철도와
code.
지방 정보 철도까지 확장할 수 있도록 기반을 마련하였고
We have established a foundation
도면 및
to
기술 문서를
apply
통합하여
this
쉽게 찾아볼 수
national railway
있도록
facility
하였습니다.
code to all
또한
facilities
모든 유지 보수
across the
작업을
railway
투명하여 예산 수립의
organizations.
투명성도 강화하였습니다.
Also, we enhance the transparency in budget execution.
마지막으로
Lastly,
GIS 기반의 시설물
GIS-based
관리
railway facilities
서울,
management
부산,
pilot
고속선,
plan.
호남 고속선 등
Seoul,
4개 노선
Busan high-speed rail, and
732km에
Honam
대해
high-speed
철도시설 GIS
rail,
기반을
and the
시행하겠습니다.
other high-speed rails.
GIS
So in total, in 4 lines,
GIS
we
정보는 선로,
conducted the
통업,
pilot
전투,
deployment of
전지,
the
신호
system.
통신 등 철도시설에 대하여
GIS-based
150개 레이어로
railway
구분하여
facilities
위치 정보와
management
시설물 정보를 제공합니다.
system provides various information and data about facilities location and maintenance history, such as building ledger, land use plan, and cadastral information and weather information as well.
다음 화면은 연도별 지도를 비교함으로써
This screen shows the
철도
comparison
시설물과
among
주변의
maps,
구조물들이
and it
매년
shows
어떻게
how
변경되었는지를
the
조회하는 사례입니다.
nearby environment
또한
of our facilities have
향후
been
모바일
changed.
시스템과 연계하여
And this
현장에서
will be connected to
시설물 위치를
mobile
손쉽게
system in the
찾아가는
future
기능도 제공합니다.
so that workers can easily search for the specific location that require maintenance easily on their mobile
홀의
device.
현장에서 보관 중인 도면 및 기술 자료를 통합
Next
구축하여
is the GIS-based railway facilities management pilot project, where we can make an integrated management of drawings and technical documents.
다음 시스템 구축 효과입니다.
Next is the effect of RAFIS system. First of all, in terms of quantitative effect, we have achieved the economic value of around $23 million a year. Also, it gives us the effectiveness in train punctuality, which amounts to $1.25 million. It also enhances work productivity, which is worth $22 million. In terms of qualitative effect, we can enhance work efficiency and establish railroad credibility through the system. From 2022, we will establish mobile system and extend GIS across all routes. We will also use more IoT big data, and after 2026, we will use augmented reality technology as well as AI technology. Thank you very much for your attention.
예, 발표에 수고해 주신
Thank you very
박준태
much,
부장님.
Mr. Park Jun-tae, for your presentation.
이것으로 세 건의 주제 발표가 모두 마무리되었습니다.
Well, we heard
수고해주신 모든
all
발표자분들께
from the
다시 한번
three
감사드립니다.
teams of speakers. I'd like to thank all the speakers for their presentation. Now we are going to have time for discussion and Q&A.
토론자분들께서 무대 위로
So I'd
올라주시기
like to invite the speakers and discussion panelists to the stage.
예. 토론에 앞서 이번 세션
Before we start discussion and a Q&A, let me introduce you the discussion panelists. First, we have Hyung-chul Kim from Korean National Railway with us. And Professor Han Gi-yoon at Sungwon University is here with us. And Professor In-kyu Park at Dongyang University is here with us. So we have three discussion panelists with us on the stage. So let me hear from Professor Kim Hyung-chul first. First of all, I'd like to thank all the speakers for their hard work. And thank you very much for your information. The first two presentations emphasize the importance of safety and how we develop indicators to ensure safety. Yesterday, we discussed a topic of maintenance.
In the first presentation made by Infrabel, so XPro had positive effect. He explained about the positive effect of XPro. I would like to ask the speaker from Infrabel about specific case examples. Specifically or concretely, what kind of benefits did you have by using XPro? Can you take some examples?
Thank you, Professor, for your question. For the moment, we start all the expos. Then, I show you the big schema of what it will be. And for the moment, there is a lot of different safety events discussed, and they lead for analysis of the event and accepting the systemic view of the complex view of how an event happened. That's really the first return. concrete examples. I told you this really safety events happen really on the field. Discuss about it and try to find the problematic, and it may lead to an adaptation of the rules, or looking at the process of the activity, the good following of the often better following of the action in an activity. Voilà, I can not more telling about this.
예, 답변 감사합니다.
Thank you for your answer, Professor Han.
오늘 이 자리 굉장히 철도 안전에
It is my pleasure to join this session because we are discussing very important safety issues for railway. Thank you for having me. So I'd like to ask the second speakers. We had two speakers for the second presentation. So I'd like to ask them this question. So they compare the lagging KPI and leading KPI. And thank you very much for your useful information. While listening to your presentation, I thought we have some lessons that we can learn from you. And you mentioned that we lack risk models. We need more risk models in place, and I agree to that. I found that we need more risk models in place, so we are working on it. We are doing R&D on it. So either one of you can answer this question. Regarding risk models, what type of risk models do we have to develop? Do you have any piece of advice for us? Or how we can develop the most effective risk model? Just your piece of advice for us.
Thank you for the question. Actually, we have different kinds of risk models in terms of what kind of ways of models you use. But I think the basic concept are same. They are measuring the risk and cause consequence, and the casing is measuring the preventative controls and also the outcome. So in my opinion, there is no fixed way for each country or each organization of the world. I think they have multiple choice. Depends in terms of actual requirements and situations. And how about your view, Christine?
Yeah, I would like to supplement a good safety risk model is the ability to cover various hazardous events on the railway. That is covering all the high frequency, low frequency, high consequence, low consequence. So it depends on the use of your safety risk model. As I say, for the example that we use, we actually start with 2 hazardous events, not the general 100 hazardous event, which we typically expect for railway for safety risk model applied in railway, the entire railway systems. So as long as it covers the right level of details, whether we are using fault tree inventory, or whether we are using bolt ties, or whether we're using the fishbone analysis, these are all good. More importantly, it's about the content of it, and also it's actually matching the requirements, the maturity of the railway organization, not overly complicated, but right for use.
Adding to that, can I ask more questions? Thank you for your answer. And you said, for the interest of time, you didn't go into too much detail. So if you think about the global railway and specifically for Korean railway, are you willing to share your data with the Korean railway if you can? Can you share your data with us for the development of the Korean railway? Christine.
Oh, sorry. Yes, definitely, because I think this is a very good process to share with Korean Railway and also with KRI. Actually, we have got some previous research project also on the safety risk model. And I think bring the safety risk model to the next step will be about establishing the KPIs, whether there's leading KPIs or lagging safety KPI. So definitely we'll be willing to share with current railways more about our research outcome and our pilot project outcome.
예, 참고로 그
For
KRI
your
와
information,
레일간에는
the
이제
KRRI and
안전에 대한
Ricardo
MOU가
Rail
맺어져 있고요.
already signed an
여러 분야에서
MOU for
같이 협력을 하고
cooperation. We are
있습니다.
working together
KRI가
for
잘
accreditation,
정리된 그런 내용들을 이제 학계에서도
accreditation in
활용할 수
other
있도록
areas.
저희가 노력을
So
하도록
the
하겠습니다.
KRRI will also work together
박인규
to
교수님
expand the
질의
cooperation.
부탁드리겠습니다.
Professor Park, would you ask questions to the speakers?
예, 오늘 발표해 주신 세 분.
Thank you very much for your presentations.
그 기본적으로
Basically,
생각했던 부분들에 대한 어떤
we have been thinking about the topics you presented regarding railway safety. And my first question is about the first presentation made by Infrabel. Maybe this question can be applied to the second presentation as well. When we diagnose and assess and analyze organizational safety culture, you can apply psychology. Infrabel mentioned that you applied psychology to safety culture. And as I understand, in Korean road transportation sector, many experts are applying psychology to preventing accidents and promoting safety. In this regard, railway sector, we need to apply more in-depth ergonomic approach and psychology into safety enhancement. In the end, important thing is to analyze the accident and prepare countermeasures. In this process, we need to apply the human and organizational factors and have a system-based view on safety. What is also important is that the organization needs to be able to accept such a culture and systems. And from your experience of XPro, when you applied XPro, did you have any challenges or did you have any problems with applying XPro? This is my first question. May I ask second question as well?
This is a question for Ricardo Rail, the second speakers. Regarding, you introduced us how to develop safety leading KPIs. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now I have some good understanding of that. And you also mentioned in your conclusion that it is important to consider budgets and resources of a certain organization. So it is important to develop a safety leading KPI that meets the budget and needs and resources of an organization, and that also meets the culture of an organization. So we have to, so how we can advise the best safety leading KPIs that for a certain organization.
Mr. Bernard Penes, would you answer the question first, and then we will move on to the second speakers.
Thank you, Professor, for your very interesting question. For us, we understood human and organizational factors and also safety culture. It's a total of different knowledge. It's about psychology. It's about sociology. It's about management. It's about safety for sure, uh, and also experience from the fields for having making the job, and all of that making a sort of systemic approach of the job of safety. Psychology is important because it's really important because with that you um, with the understanding how how the how the person may think, how the person may react, how the person have abilities, which sort of abilities, or is limited by something. It's really important to know that a person um, may act on a certain way on the other way, and also that the person may also understand differently the information you give to him, and the way you give to him, person may totally understand differently the stuff, and that's normal. That's an aspect of the psychology, an aspect also of sociology. Then it's really important to have in this aspect of safety culture all these different competency mixed for having a better understanding of all the safety is built. And what is really the problem in the Expo is more a cultural aspect. Infrabel is a really company, a highway company, where there is a lot of engineering competencies. And it's more focalized on acting on helping with machine, on making lower the interaction of human, what is really important for sure. But we human stay in the system at different level of the system on the field, but also at the conception of the system, and more on the conception of the system. The human and organizational factors is really on the field where the signaler decide to put a train on this track, but also at the conception of informatic computer system on computer process for understanding numbers, for example. And there are also human and organizational factors. Then the problem of the Expo, we are very engineering minded in the company, and coming with human and organizational factor give interest, but take times also to accept that people may do what is not expected. Voilà.
네, 크리스틴 웡님 답변 부탁드립니다.
Next, Christine, could you answer the question?
Sure. I guess the question is about how to develop this safety leading KPI for various companies of different size and of different budgets. And I think the key recommendation from us is similar to what we do. We start with a pilot application because first of all, we look at company with different safety management maturity. And if the safety management maturity is not at the highest level, which is the most mature level, and pushing all the safety leading KPI will be seen as excessive and also too much monitoring, it will be perceived by the staff in a negative way. So some positive impact might bring into a negative outcome. So my suggestions is with these company, it's better to start with might be 1 or 2 hazardous events, doing some pilot study on a smaller scale of risk model, and then try to develop some pilot safety KPI and try to measure it for a few months and see what is the outcome, what are the challenge, and then slowly integrate it and expand it to more hazardous event for more departments and then better integrate with the safety management system. So again, our recommendation is step-by-step approach.
I also want to supplement that besides what Christine has mentioned, we also can consider risk-based method, considering the risk profile of the organization, focus on the high-risk events and related preventative controls, then define the KPI. It can let us focus our limited budget on the high-risk issues. Thank you.
예, 그 해외에 계신 분들과의 질의응답은 끝났는데요. 배정된 시간이 조금
With this, we
남아서
shared
제가
questions and answers with the speakers from overseas.
박준태 부장님이 시간이
We
거의 다 돼서
have
안심하고 계신
a
것
little
같은데
time
제가
since
질문
that
하나
Mr.
드리겠습니다.
Park is not prepared to answer
짧지만 아주
questions
뭐
because we are
임팩트 있는
almost
질문으로 제가 어려운 질문이라
about to
이제
finish the session, but I want
가림막이
to
있어서
ask a
안전한
question to
환경에서 이제
Mr.
질문 하나
Park.
드리겠습니다. 항상 이 철도 안전에 R&D를 하거나 이런
When we
라피스처럼
conduct
대규모
R&D on
정부의 예산이
railway
들어가는
safety
프로젝트를 하고
system,
나면
or when we work on
국가는
government
항상
project like
이
RAFIS
효과가
system, what the
라피스가 있었을
government
때와
wants to
없었을 때
know
어떤 차이가
is
있냐라는 거를
how
우리한테 인증하게
effective the
하잖아요.
new developed
그걸
system
위한
is.
혹시 계획이
And the government
있으신지
wants you to
그게 좀 궁금해요.
prove that the newly developed system is effective. How are you planning to demonstrate the effectiveness?
입증이라 하면 앞에서
When you say proving the effectiveness,
기대 효과라든지 그런 부분들
you may refer to the presentation that explained about the benefits of the RAFIS system. First of all,
짧은 기간에 나타나는
effectiveness of RAFIS system will appear for a long period of time. The effectiveness cannot be seen in a very short period of time. So in the short-term perspectives, you can refer to the benefits described in my presentation. In terms of long-term benefits, we have to see how effective the system will be as we spend more time. So I'd like to emphasize that it's important to focus on long-term effectiveness of the RAFIS. I agree with you. And in Korea, we have experienced a dramatic decrease in the number of railway accidents, and now we have been stagnant in terms of reducing the number of railway accidents, and you may have difficulties in securing the government budget for developing safety systems like this, but I think it is important for us to collaborate with each other.
That is all for the discussion and a Q&A. And that concludes the third session of IRSC 2021. I'd like to thank all the speakers and discussion panelists and online viewers at home and abroad. And I'm Toko Shin, Chief of Smart Accreditation Department at the KRRI. Thank you very much.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the chair, Toko Shin, for chairing this session. And I'd like to also thank all the presenters and discussion panelists for being with us. And this concludes the third session of IRSC 2021. We are going to take a short break, and from 5:40 we are going to start the next session. I'll be right back. Thank you.
네, 잠시 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 17시 40분부터 제31회 국제철도안전협의회 네 번째 세션의 주제 발표 및 토론이 시작됩니다. 사장님께서는 무대에 마련된 좌석에 출석해 주시기 바라며 행사장 내에 참석자 여러분께서는 원활한 행사의 진행을 위해 휴대하고 계신 전화기에 전원을 꺼주시거나 진동으로 변경해 주시기 바랍니다. 그럼 곧 제4세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다.
Then we will shortly begin the fourth session.
네, 그럼 지금부터 제31회 국제철도안전협의회 네 번째 세션 종사자 안전에 대한 주제 발표 및 토론을 이어가도록 하겠습니다. 이번 세션의 좌장으로는 한국철도공사의 최석중 안전관리차장님께서 소개해 주시겠습니다. 그럼 차장님께 마이크를 넘기도록 하겠습니다.
먼저 바쁘신 일정에도 불구하고
First of all,
이
thank you
자리를
very
빛내주시기
much
위해
for
오늘
your
발표를
presence
수락해 주신
today.
여러
I would like to
발표자분들
thank all the
그리고
presenters and discussants
토론자분들께
for this
주주위원회를
session
대신하여
on behalf
진심으로
of the
감사의
organizing
말씀을 드립니다.
committee.
저는 이 세션의 좌장을
I
맡게
am
되어서
the moderator for the
생각하고요.
session and I am
이런 기회를
honored
주신
to serve as the
IRSC
moderator.
주주위원회에
I would
감사드립니다.
like to thank IRSC organizing committee for giving me this opportunity.
재난안전관리,
I am in charge of
안전성 업무,
human and
안전성 검증
organizational
업무를
factors
총괄하고 있는
management
안전관리처
at
최석중
Korail.
차장입니다. 만나서 반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you all.
이번 세션에서는
In this
종사자
session,
안전이라는
the topic is safety enhancement of workers. We will listen to 5 presentations and discussion. Each presentation is supposed to be made in 20 minutes. Korean speakers will make presentation on site and overseas presenters will make presentations online. After all presentations are over, we will have 20 minutes of discussion where we will share questions and answers. If you have questions, please use the chat box and we will answer your questions.
그럼 이번 세션의 발표자분들을 소개하도록
Then I would like to
하겠습니다.
introduce to you the speakers for
국제철도연맹의
the
비르지니 빠삐오
fourth
매니저님과
session.
유럽
First, Mr.
철도국의
Virginie
제인 여
Papio
프로젝트 매니저님,
and Jane Yo from UIC.
일본 동일본 철도 노동조합의
From
미치오
JREU,
나카타니 국상
we
부장,
have Mr. Michio Nakatani.
남아프리카 공화국의
From
철도
South
안전
Africa,
규제국의
we
세토냐
have
파비오 비사 마스 인적요인 전문가님,
Setuna Habia
아이리시 레일의
Setuna
노라
Habio
발표
Bisa.
박사님,
From Railway Safety Regulator, we have Dr. Nora Balf from Irish Rail and Mr. Jin Byung-chul from Seoul Metro.
이상 그 5분께서 저 발표를 해주시겠고요.
As such, we will listen to
이것으로
the
이번
presentations
세션의 발표자와
by these
발표자를
presenters,
소개를 모두 마치고
and
주제 발표를
we will
시작하도록
move on
하겠습니다.
to the presentations.
먼저 국제철도연맹의 비르지니 빠삐오
Miss
매니저님과
Virginie
유럽철도국의
Papio
제인
and
프로젝트 매니저님께서
Miss Jane Young from
공동 발표를
ERA
진행해
will
주시겠습니다.
make the first presentation. The title of this presentation is a digital platform for promoting the integration of human and organizational factors, HOF, in railways. Please welcome Miss Virginie Papio and Miss Jane Young.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you. I am Virginie Papillot, the manager of the Human and Organizational Factors and Safety Culture of the International Union of Railways, the UIC. Previously, I was working in the security division of the UIC. And so through the global and systemic approach that is being developed within the safety division, we integrate safety, HOF, fire, cyber risks, health, and environment at the same level. And while we are fostering on the exchange of best practices and experience of the UIC members. And this is this integrated safety vision that we want to share with the UIC members. Jane?
Thank you, Virginie. My name is Jane Yo. I'm a project officer at the European Union Agency for Railways. I'm an organizational psychologist by background, and since September 2018, I'm responsible for the Human and Organizational Factors program at ERA. So, what's our mission? We make the railway system work better for society. And how do we do this? Since the entry into force of the fourth railway package, the agency is the authority mandated to issue single safety certificates and vehicle type authorizations valid in multiple European countries, and to ensure an interoperable European Rail Traffic Management System, ERTMS, trackside approval. In addition, the agency continues to contribute on technical matters to the implementation of the European Union legislation aimed at improving the competitive position of the railway sector by enhancing the level of interoperability of railway systems, developing a common approach to safety on the European railway system, and contributing to creating a single European railway area without frontiers, guaranteeing a high level of safety. So now I'll give the floor back to Virginie.
Thank you, Jane. So a bit of history now. Technical innovation was at their peak during 40 years with high technical reliability and the formation of the safety management systems. Then in the year 2000, a plateau was reached in terms of safety performance. It was like a period of stagnation. And then another pillar of prevention emerged with the consideration of human and organizational factors. So what are these human and organizational factors? It's a multidisciplinary approach that use methods, knowledge, and tools from the human and social science in order to better understand the real functioning of the socio-technical systems. Then the human becomes, I would say, a major actor in the improvement of safety and was not seen anymore as a human error. So taking the HOF into account leads to a major transformation in the way a workplace is designed, the procedures are written, the training are provided, and the way we manage people. And the HOF has been taken into account in several other industries, like aviation, health, nuclear, gas and oil, and more recently in the railway domain. So to illustrate these points, the integration of HOF was included, as Jane said, in the fourth railway package, and Jane will explain that later. And more recently, UIC and ERA decided to cooperate to improve the integration of HOF and to promote a safety culture approach in all the railway community. Jane, I give you back the floor.
Thank you, Virginie. Okay, I will just quickly go over the legislation just as a reminder, because it's available on our website as well as the Commission website. Okay, the first, you can see that health and safety was in Directive 89391. But then with the advent of the coming into force of the fourth railway package, the integration of human and organizational factors has been much more specified. So in the Railway Safety Directive 2016-798, in recital 5, it says that railway safety should be generally maintained and when practicable, continuously improved, taking into account technical and scientific progress and the development of union and international law. Priority should be given to the prevention of accidents, the impact of human factors should also be taken into consideration. In recital 18, it then talks about, through its processes, the safety management system should ensure that human capabilities and limitations and the influences on human performance are addressed by applying human factors knowledge and using recognized methods. In legislation, the common safety methods on safety management system requirements, Article 4.6 is specifically on the integration of human and organizational factors. And it states, the organization shall demonstrate a systematic approach to integrating human and organizational factors within the safety management system. There are several other pieces of legislation on, for example, supervision, telling that the national safety authorities have to include HOF in their supervision strategy. There is a piece of legislation, EU 2020-572, which came out last year on the structure of the accident investigation reports produced by the national investigation bodies, which has to include sections on human and organizational factors. So the legislation is there. We have the legal basis, but how is that implemented? How can we actually help the railway sector to understand the legislation and implement it? So, Virginie, over to you.
Yes, okay. So, as I have already said, UIC and ERA have decided to join their force in order to improve the integration of HOF and the promotion of safety culture in the railway companies. We believe that ERA and UIC are complementary in their role. On the one hand, the UIC, which is a worldwide association with more than 200 members, ensure the exchange of best practices and allow the railway community to produce guidance and acceptable means of compliance. On the other hand, the ERA, which is the EU regulator, but not only, ERA works also closely with the railway sector and ensure harmonized implementation of legislation through dissemination, training, and guidance. In order to formalize this and to create synergies between these two organizations, a cooperation framework is being developed at the moment, which describes the working arrangement and the communication channels in between the two organizations to better work together. So, as Jane said before, and in 2016, the HOF started to become mandatory in the European railway legislation and was seen as a pillar for improving safety. And I would say this was very good news. But we have to keep in mind that it also means a change of mindset, a change of habits among people who lived 40 years with technical innovation as their only reference. Because, so making the HOF mandatory is a first step, as Jane said, it's a necessary step, but is not the guarantee that HOF are really considered by the railway community in, I would say, in an operational way. Because why? Because we are dealing with something bigger, something stronger, which is the implementation of a safety culture in the railway companies. And for them, that means a lot of training, a lot of awareness, a lot of a change, in fact. So it's a change management, a fundamental transformation where the organization have to succeed in integrating HOF, not only in theory, but in their daily life at work and in the management in general at all levels of the organization. So in order to achieve this change, you understood that Jane presented before the questionnaire sent by ERA.
Actually, sorry,
yes.
if I could if I could interrupt, Virginie, I'm so sorry, but yeah, if we could go back a few slides and I could present the results.
You gave me the floor, Jane.
Yes, I'm
okay,
sorry, my fault.
Ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we could rewind, thank you for your understanding. Okay, so we, in February, March 2019, we carried out a questionnaire just to see if there was actually a need for some kind of platform. It was composed of 5 questions. We had both tick box and free text. And we asked questions such as what websites did people consult? What did they like or dislike about those websites? What type of content they would find useful? The survey was open for 5 weeks, and we actually had an 18% response rate, which is okay. And okay, what did this needs analysis report show us? It showed us that there definitely is a need for more support on how to integrate HOF. And as I mentioned before, the legislation is there, but the sector needs help in understanding how to comply with it. So go to the next slide. So, okay, as I pointed out before, the new fourth railway package legislation requires a systematic integration of HOF within the safety management system. It's not necessarily requiring that people do anything new. There are a lot of railway stakeholders who are already integrating human and organizational factors, but it needs to be done in a systematic way. So what we are hoping by the platform is that we will be able to connect the dots between the HOF legislation and the operational practices. But as you can imagine, this is a very, very big task. And this is why ERA and UIC are collaborating on this to make sure that we can reach that objective and reach the needs that the survey showed us. So, okay, now if we skip through till, I think, slide 8.
Yes, so it's okay, Jane?
Okay,
okay.
Yeah, okay.
So I will not.
So, okay, wait, is it me? I'm so sorry, Virginie. I think it's the next one. And then the next one.
But sorry, Jane, I didn't finish my slide.
Okay, sorry.
Come back. Sorry for this misunderstanding. Jane just presented you the questionnaire sent by the ERA members, and so they expressed the need to have more solid knowledge and effective tools that can support them in implementing HOF approach. So that's what ERA and UIC are proposing today, a new tool which name Rail HOF, which is here to help the railway community to have more knowledge, to have a space to exchange good practices and to support them in each step of the implementation of this new approach. So now it's your turn, Jane.
Okay, so as I mentioned to you, there was we did the survey, and not only did we find out that there was a need for a platform, we also drilled down to find out a bit more about what people wanted. And the things that we found were that people wanted, in terms of functionality, they wanted easy access, they wanted a discussion forum, they wanted a good search engine. They also wanted it to be trustworthy and independent, with good quality evidence-based scientific information based on valid, reliable statistical data. They wanted a wide variety of relevant railway topics. Another thing which was important was up-to-date and easy to read synthesis of information, latest advances in HOF, links to research in specific cases, potential training materials and online training. They wanted tools, on how to apply HOF, examples of best practice, and then in terms of content, they wanted information on the regulatory framework, safety culture, and HOF in accident investigations. Those were 3 areas that were specifically mentioned. So if we go to the next slide. So it was decided, taking these results into account, to create 3 different areas. So there was an easy to navigate homepage where people can easily find what they're looking for. Then there's a social media platform, which LinkedIn, which has been created where people can ask questions and have discussions. And then last but not least, there's a restricted members area, which is also being created for confidential working documents and discussions. So the next slide, please. So, okay, what are our expectations from the platform? We're hoping to attract a wide audience from people wanting to know more about the subject to HOF specialists, so quite a wide range. We want it to be a forum for exchanges of best practices, interesting articles, information from other high-risk sectors and more. A lively go-to platform with up-to-date information. And we can all learn from each other and benefit from a European and worldwide approach. So now I hand it back to Virginie.
Okay, thank you so much. So here is a screenshot of the beta version of the Rail HOF. This is the homepage, the one where the publics arrive on the site. At the top, there is an overview of what the platform is, and below in the blue box, it's a direct access for people who want to know more about human and organizational factors. In a green box, it's a direct access to join the LinkedIn group that we will launch at the end of the year. And in a gray box, it's a UIC secure space where members can share a confidential document or confidential discussion. Then it's a screenshot of the second part of the homepage, a more theoretical part with, on the left, a definition of human and organizational factors from International Ergonomics Association, but also from European Railway Agency. And on the right, some facts that we will fill in and that we will improve maybe along the process. And finally, here is a graphical representation of the third part of the homepage, which is called Results. Here, you will be able soon to find a document, a research article, best practices, tools, and models on the human and organizational factors. This part, we decided to organize it in 4 big categories. The first one, enhancing safety management, HOF regulations, human performance, and finally, operational issues. And then these 4 big categories have been split in several subcategories to facilitate the research for the Rail HOF users. So this is the end of our presentation. Sorry for this little misunderstanding between us, but I hope you understood well what we present you today about the Rail HOF tool. And we already invite you, if you want to contact us, if you want to know more about this Rail HOF tool, and if you want to participate in it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about the mistake. Thank you.
글로벌 철도 산업계의 리스크에 기반한 버추얼 플랫폼을
They introduced us a risk-based virtual platform. I believe that will help exchange best practices and information between railway workers. I think that's the goal of HOF. It was a very impressive presentation. Thank you very much again for your presentation.
다음은 동일본철도
Next, I would
노동조합의
like to
미치오
invite the
나카타니
speaker from
협상부장님께서 발표를
JREU.
진행해 주시겠습니다.
Mr. Michio
발표
Nakatani
제목은
will make
일본
presentation.
여객철도 그
The
회사
title
세부세
is
업무 및
Proposal for
직장의 미래를
Protecting the
전망하며
Workforce, Job
직장과
and
직업
Life
그리고
as
삶을
looking
보호하기
to the
위한
future of the
제안입니다.
work and workplace of the three
박수로
JR
환영해 주시기
companies.
바랍니다.
Please welcome the presenter with a big round of applause.
다시もう一個前に戻せますか？いいですかね？はい。Well, thank you, Chair, and hello to everyone watching this. My name is Emily, and on behalf of Mr. Nagatani here, my presentation today is about us, the union looking to the future of JR East Group by understanding challenges in workplace and trying to protect the employment and safety of the members. Due to the spread of new, Due to the spread of new coronavirus infections, the consolidated financial results for the end of fiscal 2020 were a deficit of 577.9 billion yen. Even at present, the deficit is still continuing due to the spread of Delta variant. In the Management Vision Move Up 2027, JR East announced to shift its focus from providing services starting from railway infrastructures to providing new value to society, starting from affluence in human life. And the company will allocate management resources more to the life service businesses.
잠시만 좀 기다렸다. 지금 파워포인트
Sorry,
프레젠테이션
your
내용이 넘어가지 않고
PowerPoint
있어서
presentation, the slides are just the
전체
same.
화면으로 좀 바꿔주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Would you enlarge the screen of your PowerPoint presentation? Would you enlarge the screen? And we are still on page 1 on slide.
page 1のままです。
あれなんでだろう。
Very sorry.
止めていいですか？
はい。
sorry.
多分もう最初からはいけないので、スライド3ぐらいからいけます。
프레젠테이션 화면으로 바꿔주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Please share your slide and show us your PowerPoint slides.
パワーポイントのスライドを見せてください。私たちの方には映っていません。
あれなんでだろう。ごめんなさい。Sorry.
Can you see it now?
아직 안 보입니다.
No, we don't see your slides.
접속이 좀 불편하게 해드린 점
Sorry for the technical issues, but we don't see your slides now.
どういう理由かわかりませんが、こちらにあなたのスライドは全く映っておりません。
ズームも活されて、
예, 아직 그 준비가 잘 안 되시면은
If you're not yet prepared to share your PowerPoint slides, would you change the order of your presentation? Would you like the next speaker to start the presentation first, and would you do your presentation after
次の方に先に譲って、その後にもう一度始めますか？ Would you please do that for us? I'm so sorry. あれ、聞こえてないのかな？これが出てるかによってですね。We would like to do more of a prep work. I'm so sorry, but can you just pass us? 今度聞こえないの？チャットが入ってますか？何か。
일본의 나카타니 씨 준비하시는 동안에 그 남아프리카 공화국의
We'd like to ask the speaker from South Africa if the speaker from South Africa can make presentation first. Can we change the order of presentation?
네, 시청자 여러분들께 잠시 양해 말씀드리겠습니다.
I'd like to make an apology. Japan has a technical issue, so we can't see the presentation slides on screen. So they need some time to address the technical issue. So I'd like to ask for your patience. Thank you.
일본의 나카타님 준비하시는 동안에
While the
다음은 남아프리카 공화국의
Japanese
철도
speakers
안전
are
부제국의
preparing for the
세투냐
presentation, we'd like to start the presentation from South Africa
발표를
first.
진행해 주시겠습니다.
So Ms. Setuna Masi will go first. The title of her presentation is Improving Personal Safety on Commuter Trains at Stations in the Republic of South Africa. Ms. Setuna Masi, do you mind going first? The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. As the speaker already said, my name is Tunya Matsie, and I am a human factors specialist at the Railway Safety Regulator in South Africa. So what I'll be presenting today is a paper. It's a research paper that was conducted by myself and a few of my colleagues at the Railway Safety Regulator. Those colleagues' names are Smart Mpofu, Tendai Matai, and Sponele Kumede. So the title of my paper is Improving Personal Safety on Commuter Trains at Stations in the Republic of South Africa, a study on platform train interface incident solutions. Yeah. All right, so just as introduction, PTI that refers to platform train interface. So those incidents in the South African railway industry, they're a regular occurrence. The State of Safety report describes them as a weekday peak hour phenomenon. 99% of PTI occurrences are recorded in the Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and Western Cape provinces, and those are the three largest provinces in South Africa. 97% of PTI occurrences resulted in injuries and 9 fatalities per year from 2011 until 2019. The 2020 stats haven't yet come in, or they hadn't yet come in at the time that this research report was being put together. And these incidents have increased by 30% since 2010, 2011. So the aim of our research paper, we wanted to understand all the factors that contributed to PTI occurrences. One of the things that we try to do as the railway safety regulator is try to understand the challenges that our railway operators are facing. So we want to understand what they're struggling with. We want to understand their environment exactly so that we are in a better position to assist them. So this report aims to analyze contributory factors associated with PTI occurrences and to recommend solutions to reduce these risks. When we did our literature review, we found that the PTI was being referred to as an interaction between the surface height of the station platform and the floor height of the train, with the floor height of the train ideally meeting the platform surface with no vertical and horizontal gaps in an ideal world. And that PTIs are possibly among one of the most unsafe spaces for passengers getting on and off trains at stations. The platform train interface, however, is a complex space. It presents diverse risks and hazards for passengers, and accidents can occur during in-training and detraining, or merely at the platform edge, even when passengers are not getting on and off the trains. So, like I said before, in an ideal world, there'll be no gaps, or there'll be ideally, what was I saying before? No vertical and horizontal gaps. But this is not always possible because the gaps between the train and the platform are a necessity. And the gap clearances, they minimize the risk of trains striking the platform. The gaps also permit for different forms of rolling stock to pass through the stations. And the sizes, the gap sizes, are influenced by the movement of the track, the platform construction, the types of trains passing through the station. And these gaps also ensure that trains can operate safely at authorized speeds. So you kind of have to have these gaps. However, what you need to ensure is that there's a balance in the size of the gaps, because if the gaps are too wide, it could lead to difficulties when passengers are trying to get on and off the trains at the platform. In our literature review, we're also looking at how the horizontal gap between platform and train on a straight track should remain constant. Gaps are usually slightly increased on horizontal curves, and changes in the size of the vertical and horizontal gap is at times a result of the shifting of platforms and tracks due to resurfacing, maintenance, weather. So the gap sizes will change over time because of all these factors that are stated here. So it's important that it's monitored. So for the study, what we did was we conducted an international benchmarking study focused on railway safety and the strategies used internationally. We wanted to understand what are other operators and regulators doing in other countries to manage platform train interfaces. So we also wanted to analyze what is happening in South Africa. So what we did was we analyzed 20 investigation reports. And in those reports, we noted the station design, the security, platform train interface measurements, signage, and commuter behavior challenges. We also conducted a risk assessment from the analysis because we wanted to look at what mitigation strategies would be more effective. On to the results. So if you look at the table here on my right-hand side, it shows this is the summary version of what we found from the results that we looked at. When looking at the different types of challenges under passenger behavioral, we saw that passengers were observed doing things like walking past the exit gate after getting off the train and exiting the station illegally. So they weren't exiting where they were meant to be exiting. They were jumping on the railway lines to move between the platforms. They were accessing the station from the railway lines at platform ends. They weren't using access gates. They were getting on and off the trains while the trains were in motion. And they were having difficulties getting on and off the train due to the height of the train. And then when it came to the planning challenges that we looked at from the results we got, we saw that trains were often overcrowded or delayed, or they were cancelled, and there was often a shortage of train sets. When it came to the training and awareness challenges, we saw that there were a lot of stations that didn't have information board or announcement guidelines. So passengers were getting there and they didn't know when the train would arrive. They would have to rely on asking other passengers who are already there waiting, when is the train coming? Because there was no information being given to them. And also security personnel had no skills or training to control the crowds in situations where there were a large number of people at the station. When it came to the design and maintenance challenges, we saw that there were no scheduled maintenance that took place. The vertical and horizontal platform clearance was often out of spec. There were no PTI clearance measurements being conducted, so they weren't keeping an eye on how far removed from specs the PTI measures were. The stations did not have access for people who are differently abled. And a lot of the stations were poorly maintained, and the public announcement systems, the PA systems, were often non-functional. When it came to the safety and risk management challenges, we saw that risk assessments were not frequently conducted, or they were generic with no consideration for PTI-related risks PTI-related risks, and the platforms at a significant number of stations were vertically and horizontally misaligned. The fencing at a certain station was frequently vandalized, and there was a shortage of security personnel. So we wanted to look at all these different challenges because we were of the opinion, after looking at literature review and what other operators were doing, that PTI challenges won't just be about the platform train interface, the mechanism of it, that there will be all these other variables that will make it worse or make it better. So we wanted to understand all the other variables around that. And this is the picture that we got. When it came to security personnel, we found that they were always reactive. They were hardly able to prevent an injury or death from occurring. And this was because they're not trained, like I was saying. There was an insufficient number of them at these stations, so they weren't actually able to assist in any meaningful way. And then the consequence of having an inadequate number of security personnel deployed at the station was that it intensifies the likelihood of commuters disregarding safety procedures at the stations. So we thought that it would increase the chances of passengers engaged in those behaviors that I briefly spoke about earlier. So overcrowding on trains and at stations was a major issue that was influenced by several factors. We thought that it was the overcrowding issue. It was the place where all the minor failures that we were seeing from the different departments merged to create a hazardous situation. Overcrowding was worse when there were service disruptions, such as train delays and cancellations. And disruptions often exacerbated the shortage of train sets, and train sets were frequently reported to be in short supply after other trains had become defective. So you have this issue where trains become defective, they're not being maintained well, there are delays, and that increases overcrowding. And when there's overcrowding, it increases the chances of passengers being injured while getting on and off the train, because some would be rushing and pushing and engaging in all those behaviors that I spoke about in the previous slide. It was noted that most stations did not have a train schedule, and those that did had an outdated one. So once again, passengers who get there don't know when the next train will come. And if they do, sometimes because of the delays, the train breakdowns, the shortages, they're then waiting for much longer than they had planned to. So communication that would inform passengers of delays, of breakdowns, of repairs, and expected wait times was sometimes unavailable. And this increases the likelihood that passengers will rush to board a train because they are not sure when the next one will come. Some passengers got on the train after a long wait time, and other stations had no one in the ticket office. So access control was not always present. And with no one being in the ticket office, it means that people are getting on the trains without having paid, and anyone can get into the trains really. Other stations had access control challenge due in part to an inherited system that was not always enclosed or fenced. So that was the other challenge, was that they have a system where there are no fences around. So literally anybody can just walk in and get into the stations. And that's why people were entering the stations through platform ends. There was actually no fencing or any enclosure of any type to prevent them from doing that. More results. So the table on the right shows the results of the benchmarking study that we did, where we looked at what the different operators were looking at. We looked at the Bangkok Mass Transit, University of Addis Ababa, their research report, the Railway Safety and Standards Board, the Office of Rail and Road. So we're looking at all these different the strategies that were being used to manage PTI occurrences. And we were seeing that they used a combination of technological, communicative, training focus, risk management, and resource enhancement methods to tackle PTI challenges. So we're seeing that they're all using different types of strategies in order to manage PTIs. It wasn't just about the actual gaps. It was also about all the different things that they're doing. The strategies employed included conducting scheduled inspections to proactively ensure efficiency of processes, systems, and assets. And a lot of these studies that were done, or rather the results of these studies, we saw that they were not using reactive risk mitigation methods. It was planned, it was proactive, and a lot of it really made a difference in helping them manage PTI incidents. So carrying out risk assessments with the risks identified being mitigated and solutions implemented was one of the key strategies that we found. So they're doing risk assessment, they're making sure that when risk assessments are done, they mitigate, they implement the solutions. The main strategies make use of platform redesign to minimize PTI risks, increasing the presence of station marshals, installation of safety barriers that physically reduce the risk of falling or tripping at the gap, passenger awareness interventions, proactive risk assessments and inspections, and systemic and risk-based approach to manage. So what we were seeing was that they used the systemic and risk-based approach to manage safety risks and platform train interface risks. And then from the analysis of the PTI occurrences and investigation reports, the main hazards identified at the platform train interfaces were the platform train gap, overcrowding, passenger behavior, poor lighting at station platforms and in the trains running late, cancelled trains, inadequate security and platform marshal deployment at stations, and ineffective passenger communication. The platform train gap is of major concern as most of the platforms did not conform to the platform standard. So to conclude, we thought that PTI incidents tended to occur due to failures in technological, risk management, safety management, training and awareness, design, as well as maintenance strategies. Failures in these different areas emanating from different departments point to a possible catastrophic failure of the safety management system related to PTIs, because you have to look at the bigger picture and what it says about the general safety management system. And what this picture said to us was that the safety management system was not working at all when it came in particular to managing PTIs. Some of the control methods that were in place were not implemented across all the stations, and having an inadequate number of resources was often a contributing factor. So one of the aims was to understand what are the factors and then make recommendations. So our recommendations were to reduce the large vertical and horizontal gaps, to utilize platform gap fillers, install watch the gap stencils, develop policies and procedures that regulate and oversee the management of PTIs incidents, install visible signage at the platform, conduct maintenance as planned, assign more marshals or security personnel at the stations, train station personnel and employees on managing PTI risks, install safety barriers, materials, or fences at stations, and educate the public and passengers on platform train interface risks. That is all. Thank you so much for your attention.
감사합니다.
Thank you very
지금
much.
저 승강장과 열차 사이에서 발생할 수 있는
He
여러 가지
did an
그
excellent
리스크들이
job in
있는데 이런
introducing
리스크들을
us
식별하는
risks
것이 안전을
of
그
PTI.
관리하기 위한 첫
So
번째 그
identifying
발걸음이
those
아닌가
risks
생각이
is the
들고요.
first step we need to
철도
take
역사
to
시설과 차량
enhance
사이의 그
safety in
인터페이스
railway.
문제는
And PTI
철도
issues
운영사면은
is a
어디나
very
다 중요하게
important and a
생각하는
critical
부분일
issue for
것입니다.
any railway
먼저
operators.
정확한 분석과 다양한 그
Thank you for
벤치마킹,
sharing
그다음에
your
시설
study
관리 기준과 불완전
results,
요인을 발굴하고
and you
식별을
also
한 다음에
introduced
그
us
분석을
the
해주신
standards
부분이
of
상당히 인상적이었습니다.
preventing PTI
세분의 하여
accidents in the
말씀
future. It was very
정리하는
impressive.
발표 감사합니다.
Once again, thank you very much.
일본의 나가타니 씨
Now,
준비가
Mr.
되셨는지요?
Nagatani from Japan, are you ready to make the presentation?
Yes, I think we are.
준비되셨으면은 그
If so,
이번 순서는 동일본철도
I will
노동조합의
officially
미치오
introduce you.
나카타니님의
This time, we're
발표를
going to
진행하도록
listen to the
하겠습니다.
presentation from JREU.
はい、始めたいと思います。じゃあ、いいですか？ Thank you, Chair, and everyone for a big patience. Thank you. My name is Emily, and on behalf of Mr. Nagatani here, my presentation today is about us, the union looking to the future of JR East Group by understanding challenges in workplace and trying to protect the employment and the safety of our members. Due to the spread of new coronavirus infections, the consolidated financial results for the end of fiscal 2020 were a deficit of 577.9 billion yen. Even at present, the deficit is still continuing due to the spread of Delta variant. In the Management Vision Move Up 2027, JR East announced to shift its focus from providing services starting from railway infrastructures to providing new value to society starting from affluence in human life. And the company will allocate management resources more to the life service business and IT Suica business. Furthermore, the company announced speeding up the move up in September 2020, saying that the future 10 years ahead, which was drawn in Move Up 2027, has been brought to reality much sooner due to the corona pandemic. By 2026, the ratio of railway business to other business of JR East is going to be 6:4. The company will continue to focus its management resources on growth fields and aim for the early realization of 5:5. To that end, specific goals have been set. It's worth noting that the monthly target of MRS usage has jumped from 30 million to 75 million. Since the population in the Eastern Japan jurisdiction is about 50 million, you can see the height of the target. The target value for mobile Suica has also been set at 25 million, and the goal of Suica electronic money usage has been increased from 300 million to 500 million per month. In other words, we are aiming to transform into a profit structure centered around Mars. Based on the things I just mentioned, the JREU predicted what kind of future awaits us in our workplace. In speeding up the move up, the company had set change in station work, driver-only operation, and smart maintenance as the three pillars of productivity improvement and aim to further accelerate digital transformation. The first pillar is changes in station work. By promoting ticketless sales and increasing the number of token vending machines for reserved seats, they are accelerating to a sales system that does not rely on a ticket office. In addition, they have established a customer support call system and an AI-based guidance system and are promoting unmanned ticket gates. In particular, they have begun efforts to close the curtains at the ticket office even though staff are physically present, but respond only when staff are called by customers via the intercom. And future station operation will not be tied to train schedule. In other words, station staff will mainly work on planning operations using the time that has been left unattended due to mechanization. And only when called by customers and emergency, they will rush to the site to support. On the other hand, it is thought that the work such as ticketing, ticket gates, service managers, information customers, or counters, which will all have a lot of waiting time eventually when there are no customers to attend, will be reviewed. In addition, it is aimed to integrate railway workers with the live service business. In the policy about side business that group companies introduced in July, crew members are responsible for live service related works on top of railway work. For example, they are assigned station work in the morning and evening, but other type of work during the day. It can also be seen as a stepping stone to enable live service businesses. However, there are some issues. For example, the area under the jurisdiction of the management station has become wider due to the expansion of unmanned stations and consignment stations, which creates problems such as being unable to rush immediately to the trouble sites or causing variations in education and training for crew members because everybody has a different background by coming from different stations. The management said to support the site by praising crew members who are good at driving and handling problems at branch offices and base stations. What is important is understanding the special circumstances of the individual station in order to perform driving and station services without any accident. It is necessary to build a station that is strong in time of emergency and unexpected events. The second pillar is driver-only operation. In the future, it is thought that the number of train conductors in the metropolitan area will be reduced to one-man operation. For example, an automatic train operation ATO has been introduced at each station on the Joban line between Ayase and Toride. It can be said that one step has taken toward driverless operation. If driverless driving is realized in the future, the driver who needs license will not be on board, and instead, staff with not required license will be on board for customer response and even emergency response. And those crews and staff will be so-called transportation service staff, being responsible for planning work, provision of detailed services at stations, command work, initial response in the event of vehicle or equipment failures, in addition to emergency response. In order to speed up this process, we believe that new job rotation was implemented and flexible working styles at the working institutions were proposed. In addition to operation work, including the driver and the conductor at the time of the train schedule revision in March, it is shown that in the future, it will be versatile to combine the train crew and station work, or planning work, or even weeding work and so on, by dividing those tasks by which day of the week or what time of the day. In addition, in order to make the best use of qualified crew members, employees of planning department and even managers are also being promoted to join. Meanwhile, there is a problem in education. With the expansion of one-man or driver-only operation, opportunities for passing on skills for conductor guidance will decrease. In addition, as opportunities for transfer and change of duties will increase, opportunities for long-term experience of one task will decrease. Furthermore, training drivers who do not experience conductor works create rather limited educational settings, as trainees and trainers are both inexperienced. Therefore, it is necessary to have a system to ensure knowledge and skills to be passed on. The third pillar is smart maintenance. It is said that a smart maintenance concept plan that utilizes cutting-edge technologies such as ICT will cost 1 trillion yen. And there will be no change in the plan even during the corona deficit. The conversion from TBM to CBM is a major pillar in inspection and repair workplace. In SNE, a concept to renew the conventional inspection system by introducing maintenance using monitoring technology data analysis using AI, life prediction, multi-inspection line, and car body inspection in batch. It's proposed. And the concept of replacing people with machines, such as replacement of consumables by robots and mechanization, automation of cleaning work is introduced. Among them, the only works that remain in JR company are management work, major maintenance system, and participation inspection, and the works that are directly connected to the site are all sent to group companies. It is envisioned that repair of car bodies and parts, guidance, replacement, vehicle cleaning, remodeling work, and the construction planning will all be outsourced. Next, in the facility electrical department, we have positioned the direct control of JR as a management professional and the partner company as a construction professional, and have undergone several reviews since then to the present. Recently, in the truck maintenance and electrical departments, the number of facilities has been reduced. Maintenance using monitoring equipment has been introduced, and maintenance work in the limited area has been outsourced. Smart maintenance focuses on reducing operation costs and people. In light of the declining population, a concept has been put forward to ensure maintenance while improving safety, even with a limited number of people. But in the end, it's the people who analyze the data and make repairs. It is up to the people to deal with the first time. The AI cannot be dealt with by the knowledge so far, such as making the best judgment on the spot for the situation that is encountered for the very first time, or the event that changes depending on the time and place. This is because AI cannot make a judgment without learning from the knowledge accumulated so far. Then, in order for people to make correct decisions, the challenge is how much experience that produces their base for making such decisions can be accumulated in actual living equipment, not just in some training equipment. That is a future image that can be seen from the speeding up the move up in the railway business of JR East. And the working styles created by such measures are becoming more versatile. JR East has stated that the pursuing ultimate safety by positioning safety as a top priority of management, and this speeding does not change that at all. However, the reality of the workplace is far from what they envisioned, especially the three major industrial accidents, such as electric shock, crash, and touching vehicles in a construction workplace are accidents that should never occur. But the number of accidents and events is increasing from 1 or 2 accidents a year to dozens recently. In the past, after a serious accident like the Yamanote flight crash accident occurred on February 21st, 1999, the construction work by a partner company was temporary but immediately suspended and reviewed. Together with the JR company, investigated the cause of the accident, and the countermeasures were discussed and implemented. However, today, constructions are not stopped even if an accident occurred. On January 14, 2020, at the premises of the Toyota Rolling Stock Center, the overhead wire was pressurized even though disconnector was turned on before began working. The inspector and repair staff activated the disconnector and worked on the pantograph by touching the pantograph on the roof of the vehicle, but an arc occurred, so the crew had to evacuate. In the relocation work, the wiring of the new disconnector was connected before the start of use and was in turned-in state, and the ground wire of the existing disconnector had been removed. So even if the existing disconnector was activated, the overhead wire was pressurized at 1500 volts. It was an accident that could cause an electric shock. On July 20, 2020, during the construction of the Sendai Station East Exit Office Building, a worker lost his balance when placing slab concrete and fell along the vertical safety net from 7th floor to the 4th floor and crashed. It was about 12 meters. The worker wore a safety belt but did not hang it on the main rope. There are more than 104 cases such as this. On June 16, 2021, which is just a couple months ago, an event very close to a major accident occurred between Tenoko and Yuzen Numazawa on the Yonesaka line. The line closure manager and the construction commander were so not familiar with the area that they had to use a map application tool when heading to the worksite, and they arrived 25 kilometers off from the worksite on the day. Moreover, the worksite they arrived was actually the next day's worksite. When they entered the railroad track in a tunnel, they couldn't even check kilometers, names of structures such as railroad crossings and tunnels. By the time the line closure manager and the construction commander, while the rail star was running, noticed the lights of a train coming from behind, the distance between them was only 64 meters. Even though they saw the train approaching from behind, they could not evacuate because they were inside a tunnel. So they evacuated by running the rail star all the way to the tunnel exit. In the last year and a half, many serious accidents that could lead to the 3 major industrial accidents have occurred. We have warned management that we should not cause serious accidents, such as the Fukuchiyama derailment overturn accident ever again. Technological innovations such as DX, Mars, AI, and IoT are all necessary for the railway industry, but safety should not be disregarded. We will create a workplace where safety and technologies and skills can be all integrated while inheriting the safety philosophy of from blaming people to investigating the cause that we have nurtured up to now, and the safety culture that we have cultivated based on that philosophy. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so very much.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for your
실제로 그
presentation.
IT의
In
발전,
fact, the advancement of IT and smart maintenance technologies and continuous safety-related safety devices have been adopted increasingly these days. And are those devices' safety really ensured? We have to answer these questions. So we have to always bear in mind the priority of safety. In my organization as well, we have a catchphrase, don't work unless safety is ensured. So safety is the topmost priority. And thank you for the presentation about enhancing safety of workers. Thank you. Next, we'd like to listen to the presentation from Dr. Nora Buff from Irish Rail. The title of the presentation is Bowtie Analysis of Overspeed Risk at Irish Rail. Please welcome her with a round of applause.
Thank you very much for the introduction. My presentation today is going to be on a bow tie analysis of overspeeds that we did at Irish Rail. The authors are myself, Ken Byrne, who also works at Irish Rail, and Ron McLeod, who is an independent consultant. So just a brief introduction on the risk posed by overspeeds. Of course, it's a major hazard in the rail industry, and there have been some high-profile incidents in recent years internationally where trains have derailed and there have been fatalities as a result of overspeed incidents. In Irish Rail, we track our overspeeds and we routinely monitor or track to see if trains are overspeeding. Traditionally, this was done by speed gun, which was not a comprehensive way to measure overspeed risk. But increasingly, we're using automatic detection of overspeeds between points using either track circuits or onboard devices. On the left of this slide, you can see the statistics for recent years in Irish Rail, and we have between 8 and 10 overspeed incidents per year on average. That's over about 17 million train kilometers run each year. So it's not very high numbers of events, but nevertheless, we wanted to better understand the risk that we have with these incidents and how we might reduce the numbers of overspeeds. Our internal investigations into these events has tended to focus on human error, usually the role of the driver in overspeed events. And we wanted to use a method that would allow us to take a more systems perspective on the overspeed risk. So we decided to use the bow tie approach. And we applied and followed the process that is documented in a white paper on bow tie analysis by the UK Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factor Specialists. And Ron McLeod facilitated our analysis, and he is an expert and contributed to this white paper. For anyone who's not familiar with bow tie analysis, this is the basic structure of a bow tie. So at the center, you have the top event, which in our case would be an overspeed, and that's caused by a hazard, which would be the train speed or the kinetic energy of the train. To the left of the top event, you have threats, or those conditions or situations that might lead to an overspeed. And on the right, you have the consequences of the overspeed. So the consequences are fairly obvious. Things like derailment, or at the lower end of the scale, maybe passenger discomfort. But the threats maybe aren't so obvious. When we started the process, there was a tendency to think the threat was the human error by the driver. But actually, as Ron pointed out to us, the driver is one of the major controls to prevent overspeeds. So it doesn't make sense to have the same person as both a threat and a control. So what we actually used as the threats were the reasons, the speed limits usually on the track that place a limit on how fast the train should go. Also included in the bow tie are degradation factors. So these are things that can degrade the controls or prevent them from working and preventing an overspeed or preventing the consequence from being mitigated. And those degradation factors also have controls. For our analysis, we followed a structured process. This was all done during COVID, so all done remotely online. We set up a working group which had Ron McLeod as the facilitator and included operational expertise, and that was including drivers, supervisors, and management. Civil engineering as the owners of the track and a lot of the mitigations for overspeeds. Safety managers, and myself as the human factors specialist in Irish Rail. We applied a 5-stage process to the analysis, so starting with the decision to conduct the bow tie analysis and then working through stages to develop the bow tie framework and populate it with the threats, consequences, controls, and degradation factors. And then finally, in the final stage, producing a barrier management plan, which I'll talk about a bit more later in this presentation. So this is the very high level view of the final bow tie that we produce. So at the center, you have the threat of the overspeed, which results from the train's kinetic energy. And on the left, you have 8 different threats. So the top 4 are around speed restrictions, permanent, temporary, and emergency speed restrictions. And the bottom ones are more around failures of systems, of the braking systems or the speed monitoring system, and also variation in the different types of maximum speed of different fleets and low rail adhesion. On the right, you have the consequences, and again, those range from derailment down to things more like passenger discomfort. In this presentation, there's a huge amount of information in this bow tie overall. So for today, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the threat of the permanent speed restriction and what the controls and degradation factors relating to that were. So this is the high level view of the permanent speed restriction line in the bow tie. We identified 3 major controls or barriers between the permanent speed restriction and an overspeed. And those were the automatic train protection, but that's not in place across a huge amount of our network currently. The route information book, which is a source of information for drivers on the speeds that apply over the different routes. And then the main one probably is the combination of a competent and alert driver with the working timetable where they can find the information about the speeds they're permitted to drive at. And that enables them to comply with the route requirements on speed. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. The degradation factors relating to the competent and alert driver in particular, I think we had about 7 overall, but I'm going to talk about 2 of them here as an example. So one is timekeeping pressure. So the pressure to deliver an on-time service could result in a driver maybe increasing their speed beyond the permitted speed. And the main controls we have in place around that are more procedural, so providing feedback to drivers who are involved in overspeeding incidents to reinforce the importance of maintaining the correct speed, and our safety briefing update days, which provide information to all drivers on risks and how they're managed. So that would include overspeed risk. And the second degradation factor that I want to mention is driver distraction. So that did come out in some of our investigations as being a factor in our overspeed events. And we had several mitigations that we have in place around this. Some around psychometric testing. When we select our drivers, we look at their ability to concentrate and select for that. We have things like a mobile device policy, which tries to ensure that mobile phones are not used in the train cab and so can't distract the driver. And then in red with the dotted line, we have one control that we haven't yet implemented that we're in process of doing, which is a project to reduce the in-cab alarms on some of our fleet to try to reduce the possibility of distraction from in-cab alarms. So those are just some examples of the kinds of degradation factors that we captured in the bow tie analysis and the controls that we identified for those. At a more high level, across the bow tie, we had 12 full barriers between threats and an overspeed. So that was 12 things that could prevent a threat becoming an overspeed event. And breaking those down, 3 of them were technical systems, either automatic train protection or the braking systems on the train. One was organizational, which was about the brake test procedure on our fleet to ensure that the brake systems are working correctly. One was purely human and involved communications between the driver and the signaller, and that related to warning about emergency speed restrictions. But the majority were a combination of human and organizational. So they were combinations of the driver usually and different information sources that they had to apply. In contrast, on the other side of the bow tie, on the barriers between an overspeed, when an overspeed is happening and preventing any adverse consequences of that overspeed, one was human, which was about the driver reporting and our track staff inspecting following an overspeed. And 5 were a combination of the driver and a technical system, which was the braking system. So realizing that they'd had an overspeed event and applying the brakes to reduce their speed. Hopefully it came through a little bit in that previous slide, but on this slide, it should be very obvious that for both our prevention of overspeed, so our barriers from the threats and also preventing the consequences, the main barrier we have is having a competent and alert driver. And those are supported by either information sources or technical systems like the brakes, but our competent and alert driver came out as critical in our bow tie analysis. So looking at that a little bit more, obviously the bow tie highlighted that we have a very high reliance on individuals, particularly train drivers, complying with our organizational controls, following our procedures and implementing the information that they're given. That can place a big demand on drivers' cognitive abilities, particularly their ability to absorb information if there are changes to daily working practices or speeds that apply over particular parts of the networks, and their ability to draw on that knowledge and understanding to guide their attention allocation through their shift. So one of the major outcomes from the bow tie analysis is a realization that we need to look at how we support that performance by providing better quality information, procedures or design if we can. And that's reflected in the barrier management plan that we have been producing. So the output of the bow tie analysis was translated into this barrier management plan, which does 2 things. It either checks that the existing controls that are identified in the bow tie analysis are in place and they are working the way that we expect them to. And it also assesses the feasibility of any new controls that we identified during the analysis or improvements to controls to see if it's feasible to carry through with those ideas. So some examples of what we have in the barrier management plan on the verification side, so checking that the controls are in place. We have things like checking that driver files are actually reviewed before the new drivers are passed out as competent. We have been checking that we have document management procedures in place for our information sources, such as the route information books, to make sure if there are any changes on the route, those are reflected in the information that's provided to drivers. And we've been checking that our signs, for example, are manufactured to the required sign standards so that they are reflective and visible as they are supposed to be. And then on the feasibility or assessment side of new ideas, we are looking at things like the formatting of the information that's provided to drivers, so particularly the working timetable, the weekly circular, which provides information on changes to the working timetable, and the route information books that provide information about the route, static information about the route. So we're looking at how those are formatted and whether that information can be improved and the usability of it improved so that drivers can more easily interpret and use the information contained in them. We're also looking at whether we can improve the visibility of signage on the track so that it draws drivers' attention more easily and they're less likely to miss any signs. And we have in place already for SPADs, for signals passed at dangers, we have signal sighting standards to ensure that signals are sufficiently visible. So we're looking at whether we can also put in place standards around temporary speed restriction boards on the track and the sighting standards for those to make sure that they are visible a certain amount of time before the speed restriction is entered. We also have a project to introduce train protection system across our network, but that will take several years. So we're looking at whether there are any other technology supports we can provide to monitor speed for drivers in the meantime. So the conclusions of our analysis, the bow tie analysis very much highlighted our reliance on human particularly, but the combination of human and organizational controls to both control and to both prevent and mitigate overspeeds. The detailed analysis that we did of all the possible degradation of these controls led to the barrier management plan that we are now applying. And that focuses on assuring that the current barriers we believe are in place are there and they are working as we design them, and also assessing the feasibility of improvements to the barriers that we identified during the analysis. Thank you very much for your attention.
예, 수고하셨습니다. 감사합니다. 실제로
Thank you very much for your
운영
presentation.
상황에서 맞이하는 리스크, 안전상의 리스크 이런
Actually,
부타의
safety
분석을 상당히
risks
많이
in operation can be identified through bow tie
실제로
analysis
분석한 결과를
and the
FMEA나
FME
통해서 시스템
or
설계에
other
반영을
systems
해서 최근에는
can be
과속이나
reflected in
이런
the
부분이
system
생기더라도
design. So if an overspeed takes place, triple or double safety measures, including braking system, can work. There have been a lot of advancement in those systems and technologies which have significantly decreased the risk of overspeed. But in Spain, there was derailment caused by overspeed and collision of trains. So it's important to have systematic analysis on the safety risks. Thank you very much for your presentation.
The next speaker is 진병철 as Seoul Metro. The title of his presentation is The Evolution of a Metro Station, Smart Station. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Byung-chul Jin. I'm working for information communication at Seoul Metro. It's my great honor to introduce you Smart Station that my organization is working on. Before I start, let me briefly introduce you Seoul Metro. Seoul Metro is operating 9 subway lines in Seoul and 280 stations. It carries 7.3 million passengers a day. It is a leading public transportation in Seoul, accounting for 40% of transit in Seoul. Seoul subway line number 1 to line number 4 had been operated separately from subway line number 5 to number 8. In May 2017, Seoul Metro became a single operator of all these subway lines. As you can see here, to ensure safety and convenience for large crowds of passengers, the staff of the stations almost work around the clock from 5 a.m. when the first train in the morning starts service to 1 a.m. in the next morning, as you can see here. They work in the stations, drivers work in the cars, and the maintenance staff work in depots and tunnels for facility maintenance. Seoul Metro's top priority is passengers' safety and convenience, and we always try to improve passengers' safety and convenience and try to do everything we can to ensure that. So we developed key strategies of smart connected service, operation, and response. And this is the foundation for our corporate project called Smart Connected Metro, which we have worked on since 2018. The project is about building smart stations and smart depots and smart trains and smart railway in order to achieve digital innovation in our system for safer and more convenient services delivered to our customers and employees. Part of Seoul Metro's digital innovation efforts is smart stations. Smart stations basically use a 3D-based digital twin system to manage facilities within a station at once. Smart stations also use intelligent CCTVs to monitor and respond to what is happening in a station. And this will enhance safety and convenience of passengers and walkers in cities. 3D digital twin system displays a station in 3D modeling and shows a real station in virtual space. This allows us to monitor facilities in a station remotely as if we do in person. And 3D management system makes it possible to manage facilities in a station. Intelligent CCTV system uses CCTVs and deep learning-based video analysis solution to detect fare evasion, trip vulnerable people with limited mobility, and intrusion to tunnels, and people not wearing a mask. And this helps improve safety of stations. Now, let me share with you functions of smart stations and expected effects. The screen on the slide shows a dashboard managing subway line number 1 to number 8. Through the screen, we can monitor operation of each train, of each subway line. In an emergency, such as a fire, an event message pops up with a video showing the emergency in real time. So we can identify an emergency immediately and respond to it. If you click the train on the screen, you can see what the CCTV on the train shows. I will give you more detail in the next slide. Next is a 3D screen in a station. As you can see here, the 3D screen shows the schedule of a train, and it also shows graphically a train coming in and leaving the station in 3D, which allows staff at the station to check operational condition of the train remotely. As I mentioned earlier, the system you are seeing in the slide allows you to see what happens in a train through CCTVs in the train. In an emergency, such as operational irregularities or a fire, if you click the train, you can see what is happening in the train in real time and respond rapidly. Next is a fire monitoring. As you can see here, when a fire breaks out at a station, the 3D screen will show where the fire is in a video and also show what is captured in cameras at the station. So staff at the station can find out exactly what is happening, and the 3D screen will also show an SOP manual for a fire, which the staff are expected to follow for rapid response. We also connected this smart system to the PSD breakdown alert system at our station. As you can see here, when a PSD breaks down or it is manually operated, video footages captured by the PSD's CCTV and an alarm message are displayed on the 3D screen, enabling the staff to respond quickly to the breakdown. We also installed intelligent CCTVs in tunnels, as you can see here, and the intelligent CCTVs will detect intruder to the tunnels after train operating hours or inspections. So if there is an intruder, he will pop up on the 3D screen, and we can prevent safety accident at a tunnel during these hours. We also developed a virtual patrolling system, which is one of the key functions of this 3D management system. The virtual patrolling system allows you to monitor a station as if you are patrolling it in person. This gives you a fuller picture of what is happening at the station and can also help reduce working hours of staff and help prevent safety accidents at a station. Deep learning-based video analysis solution alerts you when someone is not wearing a mask and entering a station, so you can deny him the access to the station and help prevent spread of an infectious disease. And staff at a station used to move around the station to operate the station's entrance. But Smart Station enables you to remotely roll up and down a shutter door while watching the door through a CCTV, and this helps prevent safety accidents involving passengers and improve working environment for staff. And Smart Station has many functions in 5 different categories, including security management, disaster management, facility management, and customer services. And these functions went through verification, and we plan to roll out Smart Station to all stations of subway line number 1 through number 8. Smart Station saved Seoul Metro time spent on safety inspection by 60%, and smart monitoring and remote control also saves us time taken for emergency response by 70%. We are now planning to use a Smart Station simply to manage urban subway stations in a smart way. So Metro will roll out Smart Stations to make our subways safer and more convenient, and to enable them to respond to an emergency more rapidly. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much. He introduced a smart system project that is using smart digital twin system, and Seoul Metro is planning to roll out the system. And Korea is a global leader in IT sector, and Seoul Metro is using intelligent CCTVs and other ITs for further development. Once again, thank you very much, Senior Manager Byung Chul-jin.
With this, we have provided you with all 5 presentations for the 4th session. Next, we will start discussion. Korean speakers and discussants, please come forward to the stage. I would like to introduce to you the discussants. First, from Seoul Metro, we have Dr. Kim Dong-ha. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in discussion. Thank you. From Dongyang University, we have Professor Park Jong-han. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much for insightful presentations. From Korea National University of Transportation, we have Professor Kwon Hyuk-bin. Nice to meet you all. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in discussion. You have the glass partitions. These are the safe barriers to prevent the spread of COVID-19, so you may put off your mask. First of all, Dr. Kim Dong-ha from Seoul Metro, would you make comments or ask questions? Actually, I had another schedule before the session and I came here late and I didn't listen to all the presentations. Sorry for that. But during discussion session, I would like to make comments. I'd like to hand over the microphone to other discussants to make comments first.
I'd like to make a question and make a comment about the first presentation, which was about rail HOF. HOF is not a familiar term for us yet, but thank you very much for your introduction. And the way I understand it is that it could be a good example for cooperation between organizations and government agencies and the private sector. For further development of HOF, I think it is very important to develop the so-called killer content. So is there any example of a killer content that you could include in rail HOF?
Okay, Jane, would you like to answer first?
Yes, okay, thank you very much for your question. I think that we are hoping that it's going to be a platform which is going to be very active with contributions from people. So I think, yes, if there are people who have, as you put it, killer content that they would like to share, then yes, by all means. This is something that I think would fit into the structure that we are setting up. Virginie, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yes, so first to answer to your first remarks on HOF I would say that it's nearly the same than the other expression that we use, which is human factors. It's nearly the same, but the O of urbanization gives a more 3D perspective of how we are dealing with this topic, really important topics that are not only to be considered at the level of the human, but at the level of the organization. But to come back to your question, I think, as Jane said, we are relying a lot on the input, the output from the members. So we expect that more and more the member will come from all around the world, not only in Europe, will come and give their best practices, their vision of HOF, etc. And more than that, we will try in this rail HOF tool to open it to other industrial sectors, but not now, but at long term, we would like to exchange good practices also with aviation, nuclear, and I don't know, there are a lot of other industrial sectors that are really good also in HOF. They have a big HOF experience. So I hope I answered the question. The only thing maybe I can add, is that we have 3 dimensions in this Rail HOF platform. And don't forget, we have a website, a LinkedIn group, and a secure workspace. So it gives really lots of area where the really good expert in HOF can come, the non-specialist in HOF can come, and the public who just want to know more about HOF can connect on the LinkedIn group, etc. Thank you.
예, 고맙습니다. 많은 사람이
Thank you
참여해서요.
very much.
빨리
I
베타
hope
버전에서 정식
more and more
버전으로
people are
되기를
involved and
기원하겠습니다.
engaged in HOF. Thank you very much for your
두
answer.
번째는 이제 그 동일본
Secondly,
대해서 좀 이렇게 여쭤보겠습니다.
I have a question to the JREU.
발전 방안, 철도의 이제 그 환경 변화에 대한 발전
So there are
방안을 잘
changes in the
설명해
environment of railway, and you explained very well about the direction of change. And my question is, actually, the society gives us endless challenges, and they don't want us to just stay satisfied with the current status. And members of organizations also are required to respond to various challenges. And in this process, you may have faced with a lot of difficulties. How do you think we can help our workers respond to the challenges surrounding the corporate environment? How do you think we can help the workers respond to the challenges of our corporate environment?
First
of all, we are very sorry for the inconvenience and thank you so much for patience.
技術の発展に、私たちも対応していく必要があるというふうに思っています。
Well, it's no doubt that we have to, as even workers, have to meet the expectation of these technological changes.
特に、 術の発展によって人が行っている仕事が機械に置き換えられていくと、例えばロボットだったり。
But that said, we're concerned about how our work, the human work, can be replaced by the say robots.
AI もその一つで、
One of which is, of course, AI.
しかし AI や機械は、私たちの人間をサポートするものであって、最後は私たちの人間の力で、鉄道の技術を。
But we believe that the AI or robots, they are to support us, the people, not the other way around.
鉄道の技術をさらに向上していかなくてはならないと考えています。
So we need to learn to use the technology, AI or robots, for the benefit of us, the people, and for the safety of industry altogether.
私たちは、環境の変化に対応しつつ変えてはいけない安全、というものがあります。
So we want to catch up and catch on with the technologies and the changing societies, changing the world together. But also we have to remember there are certain things that cannot be changed, which is us, the people who work. Does that answer your question?
네, 고맙습니다.
Thank you for your answer.
예. 한국교통대학교의 권 교수님.
Professor Kwon from Korea National University of Transportation.
UIC와 ERA가 추진하시는
I'd like to ask a question about
플랫폼에 대해서
the HOPE platform
큰 성공을 이루어서
between UIC and ERI. First of all, I'd like to wish you a success for HOF.
첫 번째 질문은
So my first question is the Directive 2.2016-789, and Europe is requiring HOF to be integrated into regulations, SMS, Safety Management System of Railway. And SMS in railway is based on quantitative standards and criteria. But human factor is very difficult to measure in a numerical way. So how can we integrate HOF into existing safety management system? So what is your solution or plan for the integration?
Virginie, do you want to go first or shall I? Okay.
Go first.
Okay. So your question is the fact that integrating human organizational factors is a quantitative, and you're asking about what the difference between quantitative and qualitative. Could you perhaps repeat your question? I'm not quite sure how to answer it.
I believe it will be difficult for HOF to be integrated into existing safety management system because HOF cannot be measured in a numerical way, in a number or quantitative measure. So what is your plan to make sure the integration?
Okay. What we look for is different processes that integrate human and organizational factors. So if you look at the whole SMS following the ISO high-level structure, we should be able to see human and organizational factors in leadership, the safety policy, consultation of staff. As long as we see a process that shows that the organization is integrating human and organizational factors, then this is the type of things that we are looking for. As I said, I think maybe I'm having a bit of difficulty in distinguishing between qualitative and quantitative, but if you have the processes there that show, as I say, integration of human and organizational factors in, say, as I say, consultation of staff or procedures showing that they've checked it with staff to make sure they're understandable, communication. It's more a mindset, okay, of human and organizational factors. And you can see it in the SMS, in the documented procedures, how it all fits together, how human and organizational factors can be found. It's a very transversal element, and how it can be found in all the different chapters of the safety management system. I'm still not completely sure I've answered your question, but looking at, as we are doing now, we're assessing single safety certificates. And so we're getting a lot of applications from railway undertakings, and you can see whether they have integrated human and organizational factors or not. I mean, their understanding, for a start, that it goes beyond just the, say, health and safety at work, to more integrating human and organizational factors in every part of their safety management system. Eugenie, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yes, you did a good, complete answer, but I can maybe add that we haven't got, yes, quantitative indicators to measure the HOF, but in fact, we can rely on the level of expression of a safety culture, for example, to know better how, in which mindset and in which degrees the organization are using and understand HOF. And so I think it's not a good idea to have a quantitative measuring for that. But already, as Jane said, you have some idea on it in the redaction of the SMS. But that's why also the interesting thing today is that ERA and UIC want to work together to maybe make a link in between the legislation and the mandatory HOF in the safety management system, and maybe rely on the UIC on more, I would say, practical example that we can share with the members. That was my complementary answer.
네, merci beaucoup. 답변 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for your answer.
김동호 박사님 그저 남아공에서 발표한
Dr. Kim,
트레인 스테이션하고 그
Do you have any questions about the PTI accidents
코멘트 좀 해주시고 질문하실 거 있으면 좀
in
해주시겠습니다.
South Africa? And would you like to compare PTI accidents in Korea and those of South Africa? Do you have any comments to make? I'm sorry. I'm very sorry that I didn't have a time. I didn't have a chance to listen to it because I was late here. I'm very sorry. If you have any questions about my organization, I can give you an answer. Or do you have any comments?
PTI에 대해서 제가 질문을
I have a question about PTIs.
우선은 PTI 사고를 줄이기 위해서
In order to reduce PTI, Ms.
많은 기관에 되게 도움이 될 것
Masi
같습니다.
made good suggestions. I think your suggestions will help many organizations around the world to reduce PTIs. So my question is, you suggested challenges of PTIs and solutions of PTI, and how do you plan? Do you have any plan to implement the results of your study to reduce PTIs in reality? Miss Masi?
Hi, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that question. As far as plans to actually implement the recommendations, we can't because I work for the regulator. So as the regulator, we can't implement a lot of the recommendations. But what we can do is we can engage our operators in order to get buy-in from them. So one of the things we do is we make the information that we have available to them and we publish it on our website so that they have an opportunity to read the paper, like the paper that I presented today. We publish it on the website so that they have a chance to read through it. And I suppose that what we can do after that is make ourselves available if they have any questions. But on the actual implementing them ourselves, we really can't. But we can also monitor from a regulator's perspective whether or not they are managing to reduce the platform gaps. Yeah, so I think that's about as much as we can do. I mean, we're very limited because we're the regulator and we can't actually do the implementation ourselves. But yeah, that's about all we can do.
예, 참고로 이제 서울 같은
For your
경우는요,
information, in Seoul,
그 법제화가 되어 있습니다.
we have a law and regulation regarding the gap you refer to.
그걸 그래서 준수하고
So all metro lines and subway lines have to adhere to the regulation. And in Seoul Metro, we have screen doors in every station, so we have a very low rate of PTIs.
네. 보충해서 말씀드리면 이제 건축 한계하고
Just for your
차량 한계를
information,
말씀을 하시는 것 같고요.
I think he's talking about the architecture limit and the train limit. Any additional comments?
I have question to Dr. Nora Barth from Irish Rail. Regarding bow tie analysis, you had a very good case example of bow tie analysis application. I'd like to refer to your presentation when I teach students. Actually, bow tie analysis or QRA are good methods we can use to identify areas of improvement. And after we apply such improvement measures, we have to identify the effectiveness and the number of accidents reduced. And while reading your presentation on page 2, the number of overspeed was 6 in 2021. And I actually thought that bow tie analysis may have led to the decrease in the number of overspeed, but we still have several months left for 2021, so we may have to wait a little more to see the effectiveness. And when do you think the bow tie analysis will be fully applied to Irish Rail? And I wish that you may share with us the effectiveness, the result of bow tie analysis applied to the project to reduce the overspeed. Regarding the safety promotion of workers, we'd like to have more comments, but there is time constraint. Due to time constraint, we cannot have more discussion, and if necessary, we may share with you the email address of the presenters, and you can share more questions and answers. We also have Professor Kim. So Seoul Metro has developed the 3D digital twin system. I'd like to ask Dr. Kim to share the Seoul Metro's experience. We are managing 9 routes across Seoul, and the number of lines with smart digital twin system includes line number 2, line number 1, line number 4, line number 3, and line number 8. Now, we fully completed the digital twin system establishment for line number 2. As for line number 8, about the completion rate is about 10%, and for other lines, including line number 5 and 6, we will establish the smart digital twin system. We are trying to standardize the infrastructure and perform 3D modeling and arrange various interface systems. Our experience with digital twin system could be helpful for other organizations. I can share with you my email address. For more information, I'd like to give you my email address, and due to time constraint, this will be all for my comments. Thank you. Actually, he was from Seoul Metro, so I asked him to share that experience. On chat box, we received several questions from the audience. I'd like to pick one question from the audience through the chat box.
I think many people are interested in HOF, and UIC and ERA are working together for HOF. And many people are saying in the chat box that it is encouraging to see that UIC and ERI are working together for HOF. And UIC and ERA, you may have some conflicting priorities or conflicting issues. So how do you work together? How do you make sure you resolve conflicting issues or conflicting interests when you try to realize HOF as your regulators and organizations?
Thank you for the Thank you for the encouragement from the audience. We are really happy with that, and I think I will prefer use the term complementary than conflicting, because as I presented before, we haven't got really the same role, but complementary role, and so I think we know the importance to both the importance of having this high level of human and organizational factor and safety culture level in Europe, but also in the world. So we just have to find the right way to do it. And for example, today is a really good example in real that what we want to do together, and it's an idea from ERA and from UIC, and we work hard for that with not only together, but with the human and organizational working group of the UIC. So I would say that for me, it's to see together really far from the railway community. What do you think, Jane?
Yes, I mean, thank you, Virginie. I think you've explained it very well. As you say, we do have different roles, but on the other hand, if the main objective is to increase railway safety by integrating human and organizational factors, which is what Virginie presented in her first slide, then you have to approach it from various angles. Okay, we have the legislate. We are the technical agency which proposes the recommendations to the Commission, which is then adopted into EU law. And okay, you have to have the legal basis, but it's much more than that. Okay, rules and legal bases are not the only way to cause behavior change. Okay, it's just one of the many levers. And this is why I think if we can join together and present different angles and also the diversity, I found it extremely interesting listening to the talk from the South African regulator. People in different parts of the world have different ways of approaching. And I think we can all learn from that. And this is what I tried to emphasize in the previous slide, is that, as Virginie says, I tend not to look at it as conflictual, but I look upon it as synergy and collaboration, and see how we can work together to, let's say, reach the ultimate goal of making railways safer. Thank you.
답변 감사.
Thank you very much for your answer.
답변 감사드립니다.
Thank you very much for your
그리고
answer.
다양한 질문이 뭐 있지만
We
이런
have
부분들은
many other
IRSC 위원회나
more
또
questions,
그
but I'd like to
개별적으로
ask viewers
제시된
to
이메일로 질의를
send
해주시고요.
those
시간
questions
관계상
to
그
the email
시청자분들의
address
그
of
모든
each
질의에 대해서
speaker for
답변을
the
다
session.
못해드리는 점 양해
And I
부탁드리겠습니다. 그럼
apologize
이것으로 그
for not
제31회
fully
국제 철도
answering all
안전
those
협의회 네 번째
questions today
세션
due to time
주제 발표
constraint.
및 토론을 모두
With
마치도록
this,
하겠습니다.
we would like to wrap up
수고해주신
the
모든
fourth
발표자
session.
및 토론자분들 그리고
I would like to
국내
thank all
시청자
the
여러분께
speakers and
진심으로
discussants
감사드립니다.
for their
감사합니다.
contribution to the session. Thank you very much.
지금까지 한국 철도공사에서 좌장을 담당한
I
최석중
am
수장입니다.
Seokjung Choi,
감사합니다.
Director General from
네, 세션
Korail.
진행에
Thank you.
수고해 주신
Thank you
최석준
very much
부서장님
for
감사합니다.
your
그리고 모든 발표자분들,
role as the
토론자분들도 수고
moderator. And
많으셨습니다.
thank you, presenters and
이것으로
discussants
제31회
for
국제
your
철도 안전
contribution to
협의회
the
2일차
session.
일정의 모든
With
순서가
this, we have
마무리되었습니다.
finished
행사의 마지막
all the
날인 내일
sessions prepared
16시부터
for
시작되는
today.
3일차 일정에서는
And tomorrow,
국제 협력에 대한 5건의 주제
from
발표 및
4
토론이
p.m.
진행될
Korea,
예정이며
we're going
세션을
to
끝마친
have
후에는
presentations
철도
and
안전 선언문
discussions
낭독과
under
3일간의
international
대장정을 모두
cooperation
마무리하는
topic.
폐회식이 이어서
And
진행될
also, we will
예정입니다.
have
시청자 여러분께서는
closing
행사의
ceremony.
마지막 순간까지
I
저희와
would
함께해
like to
주시기를
ask you to
바라겠습니다.
stay with us
그리고 오늘
till the
세션이
very
종료된
end
이후에는
of
잠시
this
휴식 후
IRSC
20시부터
event.
IRSC 코어 그룹 미팅이
And
진행될
today
예정입니다.
from
코어 그룹 멤버 여러분께서는 사전에 공지된
8
줌
p.m.
회의방에
Korean
정해진
time,
시간에
we're
접속해
going to
주시면
have core group
감사드리겠습니다.
meeting.
그럼
All
저는 내일 다시
participants are
찾아뵙겠습니다.
kindly
감사합니다.
requested to access Zoom by that time. Thank you.